All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's go with this one right here. We're going to be going live here in just a second. I'm going to be talking about a few different passages. I didn't grow up with the Quran, but there's some pretty bold claims that seem to be coming from the Quran, historical claims that I guess if you were to read literature, you wouldn't walk away making these kind of claims unless there's some type of theological reason for making that claim. Saying up front while everybody's here at the opening, I may open up the room to allow Muslims and others to come in and hash it out, discuss what's really going on, what is really happening in the Quran, and what does history seem to suggest. Now, no matter what, and no matter, how hard you try to pin things down historically or what people believe, there's always a way out. There's always a way of trying to say, no matter what, an unfalsifiable claim can be made, and typically that's what happens. But we're going to take a magnifying glass to some of this material here in just a moment, and I just want to give everybody a chance. Go join the Patreon. I am working very hard and moving, so if you think I'm pumping out a lot of content now and I'm doing a lot of hard work now and you're impressed, just wait until I'm not moving and I'm situated where I'm going to be with my family. I'm going to try and do some actual live streams specifically only for those who help me out and support me to keep MythVision alive, so we can keep bringing the scalpel to various worldviews who have, things that we would disagree with, that are backwards in their thinking or are making claims that really aren't helping society. So help MythVision out. I want to educate people. I'm not here to bash. I obviously want to get a lot of people to become more progressive in their thinking and not hold to fundamentalist views, no matter what religion you're at. So I want to say thank you to everybody in the chat. Super chat your questions, comments, show support that way. And I'm going to be diving in. I look forward to seeing some chat here. We're going to open up the room. Don't worry. I promise you it's going to happen. All right, let's get started. Let me get this little intro here. I do have powers. In case you were wondering, I legitimately have powers. And if you doubt me, well, here's some evidence. Okay, you saw that. You're an eyewitness. I split the moon in half. And, if you're watching, someone might say they didn't see the moon was split because they weren't watching. And it happened right there before your eyes. I hope everybody's doing well in the chat on this wonderful Sunday. Let's have church, or let's have synagogue, or let's have mosque, whatever you want to call it. Let's get together and let's discuss some of these very controversial topics. I want to say up front, I think that there was probably a historical Jesus, but even mythicists who don't think there was a historical Jesus, typically, depends on the mythicist, would say Jesus was crucified in outer space, right? Or in heaven in some way. So no matter what you think about this in this particular view, they still think he was crucified. But there's some funny early Christian texts, early-ish, that teach something contrary. And the Quran seems, with my eyes, and we're going to go into a few commentaries on these surahs that are in the Quran, that Jesus wasn't crucified. And I'm going to have Muslims come on. Shoot, Muslims may not agree with Muslims on this. And have them chat it out if you're in the chat. I want to say hey to Harvey, OG, Reminiscence. We are MythVision. George, Apollos, Deb, John, Doug. What is up, everybody? Bradford in the chat. Jason Sobek, Lord of the Four Corners. Good morning, everybody. What up? Dustin Ellerby, good to see you, my friend. I appreciate everybody in the chat. Nunbeliever, Star Capture. Robert Herring, good day, good day. Thank you for being a member, Robert. The Ghost of MythVision. Want to congratulate you for the fantastic interview you did with Robert Hoyland and all of the Islamic scholars you have brought on. What Muhammad started 1,400 years ago, MythVision podcast had ended. Thank you so much. I appreciate the super chat, Ghost of MythVision. Seriously, love you, brother. Appreciate the support. And yes, I want to keep bringing on scholars. I believe the historical methodology is a better approach than just trusting tradition, to tell you, especially when tradition conflicts with tradition. And so there's always an issue on understanding or believing what really happened or what really is the case. And that is something that Robert Hoyland was saying. You know, a lot of Western scholarship that's approaching this that doesn't have like a traditional bias, that I need to believe what the tradition teaches. They're finding issues, conflicts in the biography of Muhammad, and later traditions don't really mesh up with each other on many points. But that doesn't mean there isn't historical reality to some of the tradition. And that's something that I'm finding is a balance both within Christianity and Judaism, as well as with Islam. But there's so much change from its original context when you go back into the Hebrew Bible. Polytheism moving in toward henotheism to, you know, monotheism. Really, I don't know if henotheism is a form of polytheism, but there's a supreme deity that gets all your worship and stuff. Anywho, I think polytheism was definitely the case, since, you know, Yahweh, or El, if you will, had Asherah as his wife, and Yahweh was El's son. So this is an issue I saw recently that was brought up on Apostate Prophets channel, that there was one of the guys that's a Muslim apologist was trying to say that Yahweh was a pagan God's name, but El was truly the God, and the Jews goofed it up or something. I don't think most Muslims think that. I really don't. But because one of the things I thought that was cool that was highlighted in Apostate Prophets channel on that video, and I can't remember the Muslim apologist. The guy is radical. I mean, his stuff's backwards, like really, really backwards in thinking. But it was like the names for the prophets that are in the Quran have the derivative of Yah in their name. So if it's pagan, the Quran is calling these godly prophets with their names with Yahweh in it. I mean, it's got a Yahweh derivative. So what would be a Isaiah, right? Yah. You would have Yah in there. Yahweh is where we get the God for Yah or Yahweh from. And so these prophets' names are like thumbs up in the Quran. So why is the Muslim guy saying that? I don't know. But that's a really interesting path to take. All right. I really appreciate that support. Just showing everybody else in the chat a little love here. I wanted to give you a chance to come in. You know, I should have been a little bit more charismatic, because I know how to like get people's, you know, get them feeling the music, and just be like this right here. Here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to dive into whether or not Jesus was actually crucified, if the Quran is telling a lie, or is the Quran based on other stories that are telling a lie? What would history, or using historical methodology, tell us about this man named Jesus, who was made into a God and is the Christ, who would be taking away the sins of the world? You know, anyway, I could have done that. I should have done that, right? Because more people would have like tithed and would have felt like, yes, hallelujah, I feel it. But anyway, let's get into some of this material here. Let's stop playing games. Don't forget, join the Patreon. Let's go right into something here. I think it's better to go into the Quran first. Let me drag all of our Quran verses over here. First things first, I want to point out, I found 3. There's probably more. And this is in Surah 5 or 354. And the believers made a plan against Jesus, but Allah also planned, and Allah is the best of planners. Now, I can't speak Arabic, which means right now there are Muslims watching going, you Western white boy from North Carolina who can't speak a lick of Arabic, you don't know what you're talking about. Don't even try. And look, I get it. I've been discouraged to even look into it, because there's no convincing somebody, right? When they go, you got to know the original language in order to get it. It's kind of, to me, it's like, dang, it's like going to the Catholic Church to understand the message of Christianity. That is a problem they had with Protestantism, is that reading a Bible for yourself, you're just going to screw up and become your own pope. Well, this seems to be what the Quran is doing, but the problem is the scholars, even in Islam, can't agree all the way on many, many issues of how to understand particular passages and their traditions and you name it about how to do that. So it's like, who really has the answers? And there are other interpreters or translators, if you will, who don't say plan here. They use the term deceive, or they were trying to God was deceiving, right? He deceived them, and Allah is the best of deceivers. I'm going to go with planned. I don't want to go with the most negative translation here, because then it just looks like here's this unbeliever who's just being biased, right? He's trying to just pick apart our belief. And I'm not trying to do anything. I'm interested in what the claims are here. But there are other translations. I want to say that clearly. However, I do want to look at one of the tafsirs that I thought were interesting in this. And this is on Quran.com. So like this is the holy, like you want to get the Quran. This is supposed to be faithful to those who are believers. I'm sure many Muslims who believe come to this website to learn and go. And I was curious about this. The Jews plot to kill Isa, or Jesus. And this is what it says. Allah states that the children of Israel tried to kill Isa by conspiring to defame him and crucify him. They complained about him to the king, who was a disbeliever. They claimed that Isa was a man who misguided people, discouraged them from obeying the king, caused division, and separated between man and his own son. They also said other lies about Isa, which they will carry on their necks, including accusing him of being an illegitimate son. There are passages in the Gospels where they kind of accuse Mary of fornication and acting like, look, dude, I don't know if this is what they're trying to imply here, but it seems in one of the Gospels, and I think it's in the Gospel of John, our latest Gospel, where there are accusations that Jesus's mother was sleeping around or had him out of marriage, wasn't dedicated to a husband, or wasn't with Joseph at the time and got pregnant. So they're like saying, hey, we're not born of fornication like you are. The king became furious and sent his men to capture Isa to torture. Now, remember, it's set up here. He's causing division and telling them not to obey the king. There might be some historical facts here in the Gospels of the idea of Jesus maybe teaching people Caesar's not God. You know, this idea like, hey, look at this coin. Remember, do we pay taxes to Caesar? And Jesus says, render unto Caesar that which is Caesar's, and render unto God that which is God's. And he's kind of saying Caesar ain't God, because the coin itself would have said that Caesar was God. Like Caesar deserves worship. And of course, the Jews are not having that crap. They're like, no, we're not worshiping any Caesar. So the king became furious and sent his men to capture Isa to torture and to crucify him. When they surrounded Isa's home and he thought that they would surely capture him, Allah saved him from them, raising him up from the house to heaven. So he saves him from being crucified. Allah put the image of Isa, which is the name for Jesus, if you will, in the Quran, on a man who was in the house. When the unjust people went in the house while it was still dark, they thought that he was Isa. They captured that man, humiliated and crucified him. They also placed thorns on his head. However, Allah deceived these people. He saved and raised his prophet from them, leaving them in disarray, in darkness of their transgression. Thinking that they had successfully achieved their goal, Allah made their hearts hard and defiant of the truth, disgracing them in such disgrace that it will remain with them until the day of resurrection, which is also the day of judgment. I mean, judgment, resurrection, something in the future. This is why Allah said, and they plotted, and Allah planned too. It's almost like, and they schemed, right? Like a scheme, like they plotted. They're planning to deceive, get Jesus, kind of capture him, do something wrong. Well, Allah did something wrong too. And Allah did the best, he did the best trick, if you will, or he is also plotted better than they did, and he saved and rescued his prophet. So in this, it sounds to me, and I think anybody reading this, Jesus didn't die. He was ascended. He was captured and taken up into heaven, if you will. You know, Elijah was the same. There were also rumors that Moses never died by Josephus in the 1st century. different traditions that were happening. This is just one example, Surah 354. All right, I'm going to pause. I'm going to let everybody know in the chat. Check your chat out, but I'm going to let you know we are going to open the room up here in time. I'm going to allow Muslims to come on and chat to defend their view, or maybe they can also help me understand how they understand these passages. I am a friendly person, I promise you. I don't believe Islam. I don't believe Christianity. I don't believe Judaism. I don't believe in any of these religions, but I do want to have a respectful dialogue and understand from the lips of different Muslims, because I'm fairly confident they have different beliefs about how to understand these things. And to me, this is what I've been saying, and I get ridiculed when I make a post. In fact, let me share this as we're going into this so that everyone understands where I'm coming from. This was the post that I made earlier. Someone went on into one of my videos, I guess one of my earlier ones with Bart Ehrman. Bart Ehrman was making historical claims that Jesus was crucified. Like all of our early literature from this first century says he was crucified. First and early second century says he was crucified. Now, this gentleman says, and I suspect a gentleman, I could be wrong, I don't know what they are, but the Quran says they didn't kill him, nor did they crucify him, but God made it appear so to them. This is God using his miracle powers and performs miracles where Jesus is not crucified, but to the typical observer, it was made to appear so to them, and God is all-knowing and powerful. Now, there's a couple things just in this I want everyone to keep in mind. God, according to this person, is all-knowing. God knows the repercussions of every action. He knows all things that will happen from beginning to end, according to this all-knowing, omniscient, and powerful. And I suspect he would say all-powerful, or whoever they are would say all-powerful. So here you have an omniscient, God, omniscient, all-knowing, all-powerful God who tricked people to make it appear that Jesus was crucified. I mean, that word trick, I guess, triggers people. Oh, God's not a trickster, only Satan or Satan or however you want to pronounce the evil one's name. That's the trickster, not Allah. Well, I want to let my Muslim friends know that I've read the Holy Bible, if you will. I've read the Hebrew scriptures, and Yahweh, or El, however you want to put it, when they're fused into one, has tricked many people as well. In fact, he sent lying spirits to put lies in the mouth of prophets to lie to people so that they would be deceived and that they would fall and stumble, and then God judges them. So I am not picking on Allah alone. Like, all of these religions do this kind of stuff, okay? I just want you to understand that I am trying to point out something as a problem that I see as a non-believer. So I said, right. So Allah's trick to confuse, if you want to say it's the Jews, the enemies of Jesus, I don't care who it is, the Roman Empire, it doesn't matter. He has caused them to think Jesus was actually crucified, which created, look at the tenets of Christianity. The very earliest source material we have from Paul is that Jesus was crucified, and his death somehow was in some way for sin. His crucifying Jesus, or appearing to crucify Jesus, tricked people into creating a religion. They can't help that God tricked them. I mean, if God is way more powerful and God is so all-powerful, all-knowing, then he is tricking people. They can't help that he tricks them. They're not smarter than that. How could they even know? And in what way would you hold them accountable for a much smarter being, or the smartest being, to give omniscience to this God? How could they be held accountable? It's like they're made to be believing in false things. And it's Allah who technically, according to this logic, causes the creation of a world religion that is the biggest world religion on planet Earth. This is what I'm trying to say. And then always, if you go in the chat, there's all sorts of stuff. Dude, just stop. This is embarrassing. This verse was because Muhammad wanted to try and undeify Christ and the significance and importance of his coming, whether you believe it was physical coming or a docetic one. Okay. Like, I know the Quran does not agree that Jesus is God, nor a son of God. I get it. I'm totally with it. In fact, at this time in the 7th century, I've interviewed others, Peter von Sievers, other historians, and they know the Christian history as well. Christians were debating between like 3 to 5 different versions of Christology. Some, and it was very few, that thought Jesus was not God. Okay. Others said Jesus was so much God that when he got crucified, God died. Think about that. We're talking about the hypostatic union. And for those who don't know what that is, it's this early theological concept trying to understand how Jesus is 100% man and 100% God. They're trying to say he's both. And they're wrestling with this issue because there's places where Jesus says, well, not even I know the time or the day of the end and all this kind of stuff. Like, I'm not sure the exact hour and the exact minute. But he's God in the flesh, so how can God not know? Well, there's Christians who said, no. Like, God died when Jesus died. The all-powerful God died. And Muslims are like, are you kidding me? That is not true. Jews also would have said, that's ridiculous, right? So I think Muslims and Jews would have agreed on this idea. So they're combating theological points, I would say, I do think, of versions of Christianity. There were Syriac Christians in the region of Arabia. In fact, I'm going to get into something that I think is highly important as we dive into this, of looking at a little bit of a map. Here we have Google Earth. Okay, I want to make this full screen for anybody watching. This is Google Earth. I wanted to look at Egypt because Alexandria, Egypt, this is planet Earth, Alexandria, Egypt, on this map, you got to zoom in and actually find it. Egypt is a fairly large place, but you have a body of water between Egypt and Mecca, okay? And here we have Mecca somewhere right here. Let me see. Come on, show up. Oh, hold on. There we go. Sorry, it's right here. So Mecca, if you could see my little cursor here at the top, Mecca's here. I wish I could rotate. I am not good at Google Earth. But from Mecca, okay, to Egypt, which is a small body or large body of water, however you want to put it, I suspect there was some traveling and they could have easily have gone to Alexandria, Egypt, or have been from Coptic Christians. In fact, I've had Marijn van Putten, who is a linguist, is an expert on the language and knows the Quran. He's actually told me, some of the loan words that we find in the Quran seem to come from Coptic Syriac or Coptic Aramaic, right? So there seems to be some connection between the region of Mecca, Medina, and what's in Egypt, northern Arabia connecting over to Egypt. It's not a far travel. I mean, we would think so because I wouldn't want to walk up to the gas station a few miles away today. But when all you do is travel by camel or travel by horse or travel, this is not like ridiculous or implausible to think that people who are in the region of Arabia are able to go to Egypt or are aware of this stuff. And trade did happen through this region. There was trade happening. That's another thing that Robert Hoyland was discussing, and a lot of the scholars have pointed out there was trade running along the coast down here on Arabia. And I wish I could turn it around, but I don't know how to do that on Google Maps. Anyway, I think this is significant, very significant that we're looking at this because this will help us understand, maybe there's a connection in theological terms for the idea that we're finding in the Quran. And so we went to Surah 354. Now I want to go to another surah. And then I'm going to check the chat out here in a minute. All right. Surah 4, 157. And I don't know the translation. Is it on Nisa? I guess. 4, 157. And for their saying, indeed, we have killed the Messiah, Jesus, the Son of Mary, the messenger of Allah. And they did not kill him, nor did they crucify him. But another was made to resemble him to them. And indeed, those who differ over it are in doubt about it. They have no knowledge of it except the following of assumption, and they did not kill him for certain. This is in the Quran. That's Sahih International. Look, I am such an ignorant fool when it comes to understanding the scholarship, the translation. So my Muslim friends who are in the chat are probably going, there's a better translation than that. but it seems like they all are clearly implying Jesus escaped. Jesus never died. And this is in the 6th or 7th century, in the 630s. I just want to ask, like, what's more plausible? That this in the 7th century is like first thing that comes up, and here is the understanding, so we better understand the historical reality, what really happened to Jesus? Or are those who are studying the Quran, learning historical methodology, if we can find another example of something similar to this idea, not identical, nothing has to be Xerox copied, but the idea, if we could find this idea somewhere before the Quran's development in the 7th century, 630 to 650, when they finally put it in, like, here's the standardized text. If we could find this idea, what's more plausible? That they got this tradition from somewhere, or they wholly invented it with a man in a cave who gets a divine revelation from the angel Gabriel, and boom, this is where they get it. For me, someone who's not a believer, if I could say, there seems to be linguistic connections to Egypt, as I've had other academics come on, from loan words in the Quran that seem to resemble the region's language. And there's something else that we find in Egypt. And what is that? The Gnostic Apocalypse of Peter. And this dates 100 to 200 AD, well before the Quran. However, we have a lot of this literature in the Nag Hammadi if you will, the library, the Nag Hammadi texts we found, where there were traditions that taught things like this. The Gnostic Apocalypse of Peter is a text found amongst the Nag Hammadi library and part of the New Testament Apocrypha. Like the vast majority of text in the Nag Hammadi collection, it is heavily Gnostic. It was probably written around 100 to 200 AD. Since the only known copy is written in Coptic, it is also known as the Coptic Apocalypse of Peter. The text takes Gnostic interpretations of the crucifixion to the extreme, picturing Jesus as laughing and warning against people who cleave to the name of a dead man, thinking they shall become pure. Like some of the rarer Gnostic writings, the Gnostic Apocalypse of Peter also doubts the established crucifixion story which places Jesus on the cross. Instead, according to this text, there was a substitute. He whom you saw on the tree, glad and laughing. This is the living Jesus. But this one, into whose hand and feet they drive the nails, is his fleshly part, which is the substitute being put to shame. The one who came into being in his likeness, but look at him and me. And in this text, it says it is unclear whether this text advocates an adoptionist or docetic Christology, but based on its literary parallels with the second treatise of Great Seth, it may well subscribe to the latter, a docetic Christology. Now let's look at that treatise. The second treatise of Great Seth is an apocryphal Gnostic writing discovered in the Codex 7 of the Nag Hammadi codices and dates to around the 3rd century. The author is unknown, and the Seth referenced in the title appears nowhere in the text. Instead, Seth is thought to reference the third son of Adam and Eve, to whom Gnosis was first revealed, according to some Gnostics. Perspective and style. The treatise of the Great Seth is written in the first-person perspective of Jesus. The author appears to belong to a group of Gnostics who maintain that Jesus Christ was not crucified on the cross. Instead, the text says that Simon of Cyrene, if you want to say it that way, was mistaken for Jesus and crucified in his place. Jesus is described as standing by and laughing at their ignorance. Those who believe Jesus to have died on the cross are said to believe in a doctrine of a dead man. All those without gnosis, including those who had what would become Orthodox beliefs, as well as the figures of Adam, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, David, Solomon, the prophets, and Moses, are all referred to as laughing stock. The text shows the derision which the Gnostics felt towards those who did not realize their claimed truth, that the biblical text was false in at least certain important respects, and that the God of the Jews was not the true God. This gets into that whole, if you will, Marcion there's a false God and there's a true God. The God of Jesus was the true God, but the God of the Jews, Hebrews, etc., was the evil creator. Jesus also makes statements claiming that Adam, Moses, and John the Baptist were also laughingstocks, he says. Let me read this in just a second. Neither he, this is what the text says, neither he nor those before him, from Adam to Moses and John the Baptist, none of them knew me or my brethren. For a doctrine of angels is what arose from them. And there seems to be in Paul even this idea that angels gave the law. Angels gave the Torah. So almost like, you know, God gave angels, and maybe there was like, I don't know if Paul's thinking this, but because angels gave these things, they're falsified. And that's kind of a Gnostic idea that God didn't really give these things. Anyway, for a doctrine of angels is what arose from them, to keep dietary rules and bitter slavery. They never knew truth, nor will they know it, for there is a great deception upon their soul. He says these prominent figures were laughingstocks because they believed that the demiurge was the one true God, the God of the Jews, Yahweh, if you will, El, the God of the Hebrew Bible, was not the true God. It was the demiurge, and did not know the Gnostic truth. Some Gnostics believe Jesus was not a man, but a docetic spirit, and therefore could not die. From the translation by Roger A. Bullard and Joseph A. Gibbons. For my death, which they think happened, to them their error and blindness, since they nailed their man upon their death, it was another, their father, who drank the gall and the vinegar. It was not I. They struck me with the reed. It was another, Simon, who bore the cross, and his shoulder was another upon whom they placed the crown of thorns, and I was laughing at their ignorance. So, like, it's kind of like, ha, ha, ha. And I feel, from reading in the surah, like God gets the last laugh. Like, you thought you killed the Messiah. Ha, ha, ha. You thought that you killed my prophet. Nice try. Ha, ha, ha. God tricked them. So the evil people who wanted to kill Jesus, ha, ha, ha. Correct me if I'm wrong once I open the rooms up. I'm interested to hear what Muslims say about this. I think that this may be a tradition in which the Quran gets it from. I'm going to check the chat here for a second, and then we're going to get back to a few other surahs in the Quran and just a few more examples, and then let's have a conversation. Let's have church. Let's hang out here on MythVision for this Sunday. If you see me sipping a lot of fluids, I've been in the heat all morning working on my house, and, you know, I'm not all powerful, so I have to have fluids to stay alive. All right, here we go. Let me scroll up here just to catch up where we left off and say hey to everybody in the chat. Appreciate everybody jumping in. Hit that like button if you want to go to heaven. You know, leave a nice comment if you really want to go to heaven, and join the Patreon if you want to guarantee, you know, this is a way. You know, the Catholic Church, you know, was attacked, if you will, by Protestants. And I kind of want to bring back the indulgences thing. So if you're wanting to, like, give indulgences on behalf of one of your loved ones who's no longer around, or for yourself, join the Patreon, and you're guaranteed to go directly through purgatory, Gehenna, whatever you want to say, and go directly to heaven. This is a way to go, just like a martyr. You can pay your way through. All right. What's up, Jada? Black Angel in the house. I'm not going to be able to pronounce other names here. Jesus did not die on the cross. He survived. Read Ahmadiyya Islamic views. I hope I pronounced that properly. Yeah, this is exactly. Yeah, it's all an illusion. Many early Christian sects also believe Jesus was not crucified. Yes, some of the Gnostic ones for sure. Jesus used the words Allah for God. Okay, Apollos, Christian Apologetics. S.H. Imran Hossein says that crucified means killed on a cross. Therefore, Jesus could have been put on a cross without dying, but resurrected. So this is more like the swoon theory, it sounds like. Jesus didn't ever die. But the Quran, I don't know. I mean, I'd be interested to hear another Muslim say, no, Jesus got crucified. I'd like to hear how they interpret these passages. But, like, kind of weird, isn't it? It sounds to me, and maybe it's the English translation, that Jesus escaped death by crucifixion. In fact, he escaped death, period, and was ascended up to heaven. God took him. That's what it sounds like to me. But this super chat, it sounds like the swoon theory. And there are people who take that theory serious, that Jesus was given a drug on the cross through the sponge, where in one of the Gospels, he says, no, I don't want don't give it to me. And another one, he's like, give it to me. And he drinks the vinegar and the gall from the sponge. And then, it wasn't soon after that he's like, and they're like, oh, he's dead. Don't even pierce him. Don't break his knees. He's already dead. And then they place him in the tomb. And then 3 days later, or really it isn't exactly 3 days, a day and a half later, boom, he's alive. And others saw him alive. To me, that's more plausible than a real resurrection. I mean, that would be more plausible any day than an actual resurrection to me, because I don't start with the ontology that God raised Jesus from the dead. But because I don't believe there is a God. It is a possibility. I just don't find it to be the most likely one. Thank you, Apollos, and good debate yesterday. I enjoyed that. It's fun hearing two Christians hash it out, and me being a skeptic trying to just stay out of it, eat my popcorn and watch you throw stones at each other. I'm just kidding. All right, I'm scrolling down. Hey, everybody in the chat. I'm going for the super chats here so I can get focusing on the next passages. Stop scamming, man. Pharaoh Ptolemy II made a canal connecting Nile to Red Sea. Ibn Ishaq's biography of Muhammad says a Greek ship ran aground in the Red Sea and its timbers used to renovate the Kaaba when Muhammad was 35. Wow, I did not know this. That is an interesting statement. I'd like to read about that, because I definitely think trade is happening here. And I'm just going with the academics who are talking about this, and they're like, yeah, there's definitely trade happening, both from the south up north into northern Arabia and beyond, and then of course into the south of Arabia as well. But the recent episode I did with Hoyland was like, it's not that was there a Mecca? Yeah, everybody thinks there's a Mecca, but was Mecca where it is today? And this is an actual dispute in scholarship of the region in which it's at today, based on archaeological findings and stuff. And anyway, if you're interested in checking out that episode, I highly recommend it. I should probably update my description and add it for those who are really wanting to look at some of the scholars that are on the Western side who are being critical and examining this stuff. There's a lot to look at. But stop scamming, man. Thank you. Email me, if you would, the sources for this. I'd like to look at the original sources that may talk about this. I have not had Ayatollah as a guest. All right, I'm scrolling down. When all you do is listen to pseudo scholarship, you start to sound like them. Poor you. I don't know who that. Okay, I thought it was me. People misspell my name, Derek, all the time too. I get accusations like that a lot. We're all trying to figure things out, my friends. Abel Chavez, put the Torah, Bible, and Quran together, and I think I conclude that it is a grand code, not Bible and Quran code, although they may play a part also. A code about reincarnation for humanity, starting with Jews, Allah, Elohim. I'm skeptical. I really appreciate the support. I'm highly skeptical of any grand code. I think that they are, at best, to give you like an olive branch here. I feel like the Bible, the New Testament, the Quran are expressions of belief and thought in these cultural contexts of people who come from Abrahamic faiths. And you're going to see all these tie-ins and stuff. We're just getting clever expressions. And sometimes I do think they play around with these texts to give you kind of hidden messages, like when we read in Revelation, let him who has wisdom calculate the number of the beast. Or if you go into Genesis, a lot of scholars think the very opening statements in Genesis, there seems to be numerical gematria somewhat. So I don't think there's any ontological truth here that's like, ooh, metaphysical reality is going on. But I think it's expression of nature and their worldview that they're kind of putting into these texts. And I think it's just human. I think it's man-made. But I get it. Some people believe otherwise. Abel, thank you for that. Ibn Ishaq's work claims Muhammad's companion Salman was from Persia, then became Christian and studied under 3 Syrian bishops before moving to Arabia. Muhammad's companion Salman was from Persia, then became Christian and studied under 3 Syrian bishops before moving to Arabia. So if I get this straight, stop scamming, man. What you're actually trying to tell me, and everybody, is that Muhammad's companion knew a lot about this stuff that would have been from the regions of Persia and potentially from Syriac Christianity. So this guy would have known a thing or two that he could have said, "Oh, Prophet Muhammad," if that's how they venerated him during his lifetime. A lot of times it's after people die that they look at them like that. But shoot, I'm willing to grant that they thought he was a prophet during his life. I don't care. I'm not going to die on the hill. But they're looking at him and it's like, hey, Prophet Muhammad, here's another story. Here's another story of what we've learned from, the scriptures or from a tradition. Here are other things. And here is a man, Muhammad. He had to be smart. He had to be a very influential, smart person for his followers to have been impacted in the manner that they were, just like I would have thought the historical Jesus had to be clever, had to be charismatic, had to be someone seen as powerful to his followers. And I'd say the same for any of the Jewish prophets or people that were influential. And he's picking and choosing what seems to be true, just like every Christian who goes to a particular denomination or religion says, I think this is true, and here's why. And so he's learning these things from them, not in a cave. Is this what you're trying to get at, my friend? I'm trying to see, all right, here are thumbprints, and we're seeing the dots on how we would have learned about these things, rather than saying that Muhammad was living in a pagan world, had no clue about Jesus, Abraham, Moses, nothing, like didn't even know this stuff, didn't talk to Jews, didn't talk to Christians. And then all of a sudden, Angel Gabriel comes and says, here's all these things I'm going to teach you. And he learned them. I'm wondering if that's what you're getting at. Thank you so much. Daniel Manning, Gnostic Truth, LOL, it keeps getting more ridiculous. I don't know what you're referring to, but I'll agree. Okay, you already did that one. I'm just skipping. Scrolling down here, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just bumping into the next one. I think that's the next one. I feel like I'm... Okay, yeah. That's the next one. Here we are. Stop Scamming Man's back. Numerous Muslims moved for a time to Christian Abyssinia, I think, to avoid persecution. Among them, the third Caliph Uthman, husband of 2 of Muhammad's daughters, marries future wife Sada and his daughter Ruqayya. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. Numerous Muslims moved for a time to Christian. Okay, so they're going into these regions. I personally wouldn't mind. Look, I'm one of those skeptics who thinks the Quran is really early. I do think it's early. That doesn't mean I don't think there were minor changes by looking at things like the lower palimpsest manuscript, but not significant. I wouldn't have a problem if these traditions went straight back to the Prophet himself, Muhammad. I don't have a problem at all with any of that. It's common sense to me that this gentleman knew all of these traditions. There's no reason to think, in my opinion, that Muhammad did not know Christianity, that did not know forms of Christianity, plural, did not know the traditions of the Jews and their scriptures, all of the above. And I have a commercial break for 1 second. The mom is calling. Hey, Mom, I'm in a live stream right now. If I can call you back. All right, love you, Mama. All right, bye. All right. That was the Queen. I had to answer Mom's call. Abel Chavez, Allah, Elohim, Anak, Anunnaki, sin, sex, Satan made of smokeless fire, sexual tension, Yahweh, DNA code. The past will be like the future, and the future like the past, reincarnation, Messiah, Muhammad, equal to praise one. Holy smokes. I'm going to be honest with you, Abel. You went way over my head with this one. I don't know what to say other than thank you for the super chat. Smokeless fire made me think of Zoroastrianism to some extent, but I don't even know where to begin on this one. Way above my head, my friend. Thanks for the support. Ronaldo, Jesus is a fiction no matter what holy book you claim. Thank you for the super chat. I would definitely suggest there's obvious legend and myth of Jesus, whether you think he existed or not. I think we all should recognize that there are claims that are made about Jesus that never happened. I am of the persuasion there probably was a guy and he got legendized, mythologized, if you will. But there are those of my friends who say out the gate, total myth, he became euhemerized and they gave him a history on earth. I am of the other persuasion now. I used to be of the former, but thank you so much. Abel Chavez, again, put the grand code of the Bible and Quran together like a puzzle, but backwards, and you have reincarnation. Quran states, we come from pigs and monkeys, evolution. The Bible says humans are like Elohim. See, I don't know what the Quran says about that. Don't know, but thank you again for the super chat. Like a puzzle backwards. I'm telling you, Abel, don't know where you're getting some of these ideas from, my friend, but I do appreciate the super chat. Donating to the Church of MythVision. Hallelujah. Thank you. Okay, clear your doubts with Derek. This idiot is lying to you. Solomon was devoted Muslim. I'm not sure. Oh, we're going back up to that super chat. Let me double check this here. There's a debate happening in the chat, it seems. Okay, I'm going to keep scrolling down and catch up. Then we're going to go into a few other passages. I just want to make sure I don't leave anybody hanging here. And I will be opening up the room. We will have live chat. We will have conversation. My Muslim friends who are in the chat, don't worry. We'll have the opportunity to give me your thoughts. I do want to be able to allow multiple people to come through, so I'll have to be restricting the time in which people come on. But I do want to hear your opinion. Okay, I think I did catch up, didn't I? Okay, I caught up. Cool. All right, let's move on to the next. What is this? The Surah. We already read this, I think, where it talks about and for boasting. So Surah 4, 157, and for boasting, we killed the Messiah. Yes, I read that. I'm wondering if we can go to Tafsir and see anything interesting here. I have not checked this. The crimes of the Jews. The sins mentioned here are among the many sins that the Jews committed, which caused them to be cursed and removed far away from right guidance. The Jews broke the promises and vows that Allah took from them, and also rejected Allah's ayat, meaning his signs and proofs, and the miracles that they witnessed at the hands of their prophets, Allah said. And they're killing the prophets unjustly because there are many crimes and offenses against the prophets of Allah. For they killed many prophets, may Allah's peace be upon them saying, upon them, they're saying, our hearts are gulf, meaning wrapped with covering. According to Ibn Abbas, Mujahid, Sa'id bin, holy smokes, I'm going to butcher these names. This is similar to what the idolaters said, and they say, our hearts are under coverings, screened from that to which you invite us. Allah said, nay, Allah has set a seal upon their hearts because of their disbelief. It reminds me of like he hardens their hearts. And Paul talks about that kind of stuff. The Old Testament talks about that stuff. Is it as if they had given an excuse that their hearts do not understand what the prophet says, since their hearts are wrapped with coverings, so they claim? Allah said that their hearts are sealed because of their disbelief. As we mentioned before in the explanation of Surah Al-Baqarah, Allah then said, so they believe not but a little, for their hearts become accustomed to kufr, transgression, and weak faith. Anyway, this sounds like they've been reading the New Testament, because the New Testament is so, it's clear the blame game is on the Jews. Historically speaking, if I talk to scholars like, Bart Ehrman and others, historically speaking, the Romans would have killed Jesus because he was making claims. And there's a funny thing. You can't prove this is historical, but my gut, right? My instinct tells me there may be historical kernel to this particular idea that Jesus, when he's crucified, you have this thing above his head tacked up there, King of the Jews. Pontius Pilate is accusing Jesus in his where he finally washes his hands and finds no guilt on him. He asks him, are you a king? Are you a king of the Jews? I'm wondering if there's a kernel of history here, because when we go into the Gospels, Jesus says to his own disciples, and he says to all 12 of them, remember, Judas dies. So he says, you 12 to the 12, you will be seated on 12 thrones judging the 12 tribes of Israel. That sounds pretty freaking, I would say that does seem to echo a real apocalyptic prophet figure like Jesus, a Jewish figure in the first century, who believes that God's going to step in any moment now and destroy the Romans, get the enemies off the Jews' backs, and have the Jews finally, after all of these empires, be the empire that rules. From Egypt to Assyria to Babylon, the Medes and Persians, the Greeks, the Romans, everybody's conquered them. They've never been on top, but God promises they will be on top one day. In fact, there's prophecies in their own scriptures that the Gentiles will grab 10 Jews by their coattails, or I don't know if what's that called? The little thing that dangles on their robe. Either way. And they're going to say, teach us the Torah. So one day the Gentiles will either be crushed or they will submit. And you see the similar teaching in Islam about Allah. But yeah, like Jesus saying that sounds like he was killed by Romans, who are not going to have someone think that Rome's going to get destroyed. There is one king, and that is Caesar. Even the Jews say, according to the New Testament, we have one king, and it's Caesar. So I could see why Muslims reading the New Testament would come away with an anti-Jewish bend. The New Testament gives you that. Even Paul gives the hint, like, they won't get it. They're stubborn. There's a stumbling block. Their eyes are blind. They're hardened hearts. Romans 9-11, when he talks about God hardened Pharaoh's hearts, well, the reason he's talking about that is he's mentioning how he wished he would cut off in Romans 9:3-6. I wish I was cut off from my brethren who should have had the promises and all these things that were promised to them. But it's not over. Paul's trying to deal with cognitive dissonance here and explaining to the Roman church. It's not over, ladies and gentlemen, because once God's done with this plan with the Gentiles, then all Israel will be saved. So he finds a way to get out of the problem why Jews aren't accepting Jesus. But I could see why Islam, in the Quran, if I will, has come up with this stuff. I want to make sure. Okay, so, and because of their Jews' disbelief in uttering against Miriam, I'm reading a little more here into the Tafsir, this particular pericope, if you will. So, Jews' disbelief in uttering against Miriam a grave false charge. That's that. I think that accusation in the Gospel of John, where it talks about we were not born of fornication. In fact, I think I need to pull that up. This is why I think they got to know this tradition. Jews accuse Jesus of being born by fornication. How do they not know the gospel? Okay, where's this passage? I'm trying to find it here. John 8:41. That's it. John 8:41. We're gonna get this. We're gonna resolve this, ladies and gentlemen. All right, I'm gonna go with the ESV. I really don't care. It gets the gist across. Let me zoom this thing in here so everybody could see. All right. I hope everybody can see that. You are doing the works your father did. And they said to him, we were not born of sexual immorality. We have one Father, even God. So Jesus and them are going at it. And here's this claim. The Jews that he's disputing this with claim Jesus is born of sexual immorality. I mean, that just seems common sense to me, that if we go back to this tafsir from Surah, 5:1 something, I'd have to exit this for a second. But the Jews are uttering against Miriam, right? Like they're claiming your mom was being a bad girl. Ali bin Abi Taha said that Ibn Abbas has stated that the Jews accused Miriam of fornication. Yeah, that comes directly from the Gospel of John. This is also the saying of us. I don't even know how to butcher these. I'm so sorry. This meaning is also apparent in the ayah as the Jews accused Miriam and her son of grave accusations. So it could be from the Gospel of John, or they might even be reading the Talmud, because I know for a fact the Talmud, the Jewish writings, are accusing this very thing about Jesus. And they even have mocking accusations of saying Jesus was born by a Roman soldier named Panthera. Now, that doesn't mean he was like Roman by blood, because the Roman Empire at the time would actually have slaves that could earn their freedom by serving in the military for 20 years. After 20 years, you could become a free citizen of Rome. And so they accused Mary of actually having sex with a Roman soldier. And this was in Jewish accusations. This tradition could have come down as well. And the Quran authors, or whoever's penning these surahs, are writing this stuff down. Anyway, Jason Sobek, Lord of the Four Corners, Plotinus had an immeasurable influence on Islam. You message me on our Patreon, because you're one of my Patreon members. Message me so that I can look into some of this material, because I'm interested in, obviously, I take the historical methodology and try to see what's going on, what makes the most sense to me. But Jason, thank you for that super chat, man. And it's good to see you in the chat here. I hope everybody's enjoying their Sunday. Yeah, Pantera. That's right. Making sure I didn't miss anything important here. I hope everybody's in the chat, is enjoying themselves. And yeah, I'll open up the room here short time soon. I won't lie about that. The New Testament seems to make these claims about soon, and it never happened. Okay, this is in Surah 354. We already covered that. Surah 4:157. And for their saying, indeed, we have killed the Messiah. I think I did this tafsir as well. Okay, this is another one. So this is 4:157. That's 157. Okay, I thought I had more than that. I just want to point out a few things as we go into this. We talked about the second treatise of the Great Seth that says it was Simon of Cyrene, or Cyrene, who actually was crucified instead of Jesus. And there's a funny hint in the Gospel of Mark where they make, let me just put it this way. This is what the Christian tradition, the Jewish tradition, I would even go so far, and I haven't read it, Muslim tradition does. They find a nugget or a passage that isn't clear, and then they write these commentaries. They add tradition. One example, what are the names of the wise men that come to Jesus in Matthew at his birth? Please tell me their names. Well, if you go into church tradition, a century, 2 centuries, 3 centuries after the Gospels are written, they, the Christians, gave names to those people. So these kings now have names, but they weren't named in the Gospels. So they start to add to the tradition to give more commentary. You find the same thing. There's even a hint in Acts when Stephen is given his testimony before he gets stoned to death. He talks about how the Sanhedrin, plural, buried Jesus, like as if it were many of them that buried Jesus. But in Mark, our earliest gospel, which you would say Acts is later, there's some scholars who think this is a tradition that might have gone earlier than Mark's gospel's tradition, that in Mark, it has a specific individual who gets named, and his name is Joseph of Arimathea, who goes to bury Jesus. Well, hold on. Acts doesn't have anybody named, and it's like a generic group of Sanhedrin that bury him, but this one guy who's named in the tradition called Joseph of Arimathea actually buries him. And some academics say, listen, that seems to be a bit later than even the hint of tradition that we find in Stephen's testimony in Acts. So I don't know what to believe about that. I'm just throwing it to you. But I know for a fact that later on, they are adding stuff and creating commentaries and what kind of soup Moses ate on a Thursday. I'm just making a point. That's what they did all the time. Nothing wrong with that. Have fun. If you want to write, fun stories. In fact, they wrote different gospel traditions about Jesus, different stories. Jesus was an infant and killed a little boy, but brought him back to life, or made little clay birds come back to life. That's something that we find in the Quran, and we know that that was in Nag Hammadi literature. And where was that? Once again, it was buried, and we discovered it here in Egypt. So anybody who's interested in actually seeing Egypt's there, right here's Arabia. and you can keep following the coast, trade routes, and you're going to find Mecca, okay? I just wanted to show you. All right. Where was I going with that? There was something important. Okay, building up. I was building up. That's what I was doing. Here's another passage in particular. I was looking at this. I don't really care who says it because I think the Presbyterian Church, OPC, the PCA, all of them, like I got excommunicated from these people, like these type of Christians. But why do Muslims believe that Jesus was not crucified? And this is what they say. Muslims believe that Jesus was not crucified because they believe that the Quran, or Quran, however you want to spell it, teaches that Jesus was not crucified. In this instance, as in others, what is taught in the Quran, the sacred book of Islam, popularly known as the Muslim faith or Mohammedanism, is in contradiction to what is taught in the Bible. There's a reference in the Quran concerning the crucifixion of Jesus, and they, the Jews, slew him, Jesus, not nor crucified him, but it appeared so unto them. They have no knowledge thereof, say pursuit of a conjecture. They slew him not for certain, but Allah took him up unto himself. Though the Quran does not say so expressly, the interpretation of many Muslims is that Muhammad, or Muhammad, however you want to spell it, taught that Jesus was replaced by another man as Jesus was carrying the cross, and that the other man was the one crucified, not Jesus. There are other references in the Quran for reading. Consult Surah 355, the whole Surah 19. We didn't even get into this one. 1927 through 35 or 1991 through 95. There's not much precision here. Muhammad mixes Moses' sister Miriam and Jesus' mother Mary. He seems to say that Jesus ascended without dying, that God had no son, and that Jesus is a recognized prophet of Allah. Anyway, I'm not going to read much more here. There is another half of a page to go. But I want to read a few things from early historians. And I know that some who are mythicists want to say there was no Jesus and stuff like that. I get it. And I'm not here to sit here and debate that issue at all. That's not at all what I'm doing. But in Tacitus, I want to read what we have about this. The Roman historian and senator Tacitus referred to Jesus, his execution by Pontius Pilate, and the existence of early Christians in Rome in his final work, Annals, written circa AD 116, book 15, chapter 44. The context of the passage is the 6-day great fire of Rome that burned much of the city in AD 64 during the reign of Roman Emperor Nero. The passage is one of the earliest non-Christian references to the origins of Christianity, the execution of Christ described in the canonical Gospels, and the presence and persecution of Christians in first century Rome. The scholarly consensus is that Tacitus' reference to the execution of Jesus by Pontius Pilate is both authentic and of historical value as independent Roman source. Paul Eddy and Gregory Boyd argue that it is firmly established that Tacitus provides a non-Christian confirmation of the crucifixion of Jesus. Scholars view it as establishing three separate facts about Rome around AD 60. That there were sizable number of Christians in Rome at the time, that it was possible to distinguish between Christians and Jews in Rome, and that at the time pagans made connection between Christianity in Rome and its origin in Roman Judea. The passage and its context. The Annals, passage 1544, which has been subjected to much scholarly analysis, follows a description of the 6-day great fire of Rome that burned much of Rome in July 64 AD. The key part of the passage reads as follows, and this is a translation from Latin: but all human efforts, all the lavish gifts of the emperor, and the propitiations of the gods did not banish the sinister belief that the conflagration was the result of an order. Consequently, to get rid of the report, Nero fastened the guilt and inflicted the most extinguished tortures on a class hated for their abominations, called Christians, by the populace Christus, from whom the name had its origin, suffered the extreme penalty during the reign of Tiberius at the hands of one of our procurators, Pontius Pilate, and procurator, however you want to pronounce it, Pontius Pilate, and a most mischievous superstition. Thus, checked for the moment, again broke out not only in Judea, the first source of the evil, but even in Rome, where all things hideous and shameful from every part of the world find their center and become popular. Accordingly, an arrest was first made of all who pleaded guilty. Then, upon their information, an immense multitude was convinced not so much of the crime of firing the city as of hatred against mankind, which is the idea the Jews had as well, where they thought they were haters of all mankind, because they separated themselves from all mankind. They had a special day just for themselves, etc. And a lot of these pagan cults were kind of universal. Anybody could join them. Anybody could be part of them. However, this is what gave them this whole idea that Jews hate all mankind, and Christians went with that monotheism, or that's anachronistic to say. They went with this idea of the one God being the God of Israel, etc. However you want to pronounce or define that particular concept, because henotheism probably would better describe what was going on in the first century. Not saying there aren't heads or pockets of monotheism, but it sounds like they thought there were other gods. Even in the claim, thou shalt have no other gods before me, assumes there are other gods. You don't say that claim if there aren't other gods according to their perception. Abel Chavez is back again. He strikes me. These holy books are code for reincarnation together, but backwards for humanity. Very clever, hard to see it, but it's there because conscious goes in circles. Serious, I figured it out. Convert or die. La 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 la. LOL. I honestly, I don't know what it is that you're particularly seeing, Abel, but I'd love it if you sent me something in an email, or if there's some academic in particular who's trying to make some of these claims. As far as I could see, it seems more like we're trying to find a pattern and assuming there's a pattern there, and it may not be there. That's my opinion. I'm very skeptical of these kind of claims. And then also, I'm serious. I figured it all out by myself, studying all three holy books, but you have to put them together backwards. Reincarnation, Shroud of Turin. He cannot come back because he is stuck in Shroud. I don't know, Abel. I think the Shroud is a forged, created relic in the 13th century. But to each their own, it seems. I mean, I'm not convinced, but I appreciate the support. Thank you. Thank you so much. Seriously, you've been showering me with love today. I'm gonna make sure I put in a good word with my father, who's seated right next to me on the major throne. I'm at the right hand right now, but it's all good. He listens to me, and I'll allow you to enter into heaven. If you want to be reincarnated, we can figure out what kind of creature you want to be after, and we'll talk about it. Thank you so much for support. Appreciate that. All right, and another one, and it may be that. So here's Tacitus. We just talked about this one in particular is Suetonius. And we don't know. Suetonius might be picking this stuff up from Tacitus. It's hard to know. There are some scholars who want to argue that they got this information from Christians. All I'm trying to say in all of this, and we can go into this real quick here. I'm going to read Suetonius for you. This is in Lives of the Caesars. So for those who want to actually check it out, this book right here, one is under Claudius and the other one is under the particular section about Nero. If you're wanting to learn what a non-Christian historian may say about these things, look it up. Let's just read it. And then go from there. I'm going to zoom in because I want everybody to be able to really see. All right. Christians under Nero. During his reign, many abuses were severely punished and put down, and no fewer new laws were made. A limit was set to expenditures. The public banquets were confined to a distribution of food. The sale of any kind of cooked viands in the taverns was forbidden, with the exception of pulse and vegetables, whereas before every sort of dainty was exposed for sale. Punishment was inflicted on the Christians, a class of men given to a new and mischievous superstition. He put an end to the diversions of the chariot drivers, who from immunity of long-standing claimed the right of ranging at large and amusing themselves by cheating and robbing the people. The pantomimic actors and their partisans were banished from the city. Look at how quick Christians get like a plug. I mean, literally, punishment was inflicted on the Christians, a class of men given to a new and mischievous superstition. It's like, that's what that's how important Christianity was to these non-Christian historians. Like it obviously wasn't a big deal to them. And, but you just get this reference that they're accused for this superstition. And of course it goes on in Suetonius to explain, where is it? Crestus and all that kind of stuff, that he's put to death. And Tertullian actually talks about this also. I know that Pliny the Elder, I'm not going to get into Pliny's letter, but anyway, these are non-Christian historical sources. I wanted to bring them up because if the Quran said that Jesus is actually not crucified, therefore didn't die and was taken, as we've been reading, it appears it says, no matter what historical account, no matter what you show in the Gospels of the New Testament, Paul's letters, etc., that Jesus was crucified, it doesn't matter. You can go to the Sethian literature, you can go to the Nag Hammadi literature and the Gnostic corpus, and you could find out, okay, hold up. I just say Gnostic in general. You know what I'm talking about. Hold up. They claim that Jesus wasn't crucified. It's a like unfalsifiable claim because they're assuming that no matter what piece of literature and claim you have, Crestus and Suetonius and Tacitus and Pliny the Elder and Gospels and Paul and everything that could be early that says Jesus was crucified, the fact that Philo of Alexandria says Jews were crucified continuously, Josephus talks about crucifixions galore, it doesn't matter because at the end of the day, God tricked and even had them look and say, yeah, of course Tacitus said he was crucified. It looked like he was crucified. Everybody said he was crucified, but really he wasn't. So it's unfalsifiable. At that point, you're like, it's like saying, actually, this whole time, we've been going an hour and 10 minutes. Did you want to know something? Only one person in this live chat of 258 people watching right now know that this is not actually Derek, the host of MythVision. I am an imposter, a trickster. In fact, my name is Simon from Cyrene, and you did not even know this, but I've deceived you. All 258 of you right now, I've deceived you. Or my power that was God or whatever has deceived you right now. And you think you're talking to Derek, the host of MythVision, but I just look like him and I talk like him and I act like him and I'm being critical like him, but I'm not really him. I'm not really him. It's not me. Now, think about that. How could you prove otherwise with claims like that? You would just say, that's ridiculous. If someone tried to claim that I'm not me, you would be like, okay, we know that drugs exist. We know that people are really superstitious. What motivating factor would someone have for saying this isn't Derek? You would want to know those things. What motivating factor would people have for saying Jesus didn't get crucified? Could it be that crucifixion is the central point of Christendom and the deification of Jesus? Because Paul says in Romans 1:3 that it is Jesus being crucified, dying, and rising again, or him being ascended, taken up from his crucifixion, that he is made into the Son of God. Like it's like an adoptionist concept, it appears. And they don't like that idea. So they want to really restrict their version of monotheism to get rid of other partners with God. Restrict it to the Shema. You know, the Lord our God is one. There is no other. He has no begotten. There is none. And I think that would be the reason why someone would not want Jesus to be crucified. You couldn't prove otherwise. No matter what material you bring up, no matter what historian you talk about, you're stuck saying, this isn't really Derek, and I'm not really the host of MythVision. Prove me wrong. You're being tricked right now. And I made the claim that if God did that, God created the largest false religion called Christianity. Even if he was just trying to deceive a small few amount of Jews, this is an omniscient, all-powerful God you believe in. So how is it you can't say that Allah is responsible for creating the world's largest false religion? And it may not remain the largest. Eventually, Islam might go past it. I know that people like apostate prophets say, no, that's not the case. He thinks that they're going to dwindle. And I'd love to see all of these numbers start to dwindle and people find meaning and purpose. Even if they want to hold to traditions, look in themselves, look at their neighbors, look at their friends, and not to ancient texts trying to mimic them from the time in which they were written. A lot of that stuff's outdated. We're past that. We need to try and get past that. Anywho, I'm diverting from my point. I just don't get how we can't be logically seeing that if God knows all things and is all powerful, and he knows, hey, I'm going to trick these few Jews who are trying to kill my prophet, maybe trick a few Jews and a few Romans, whatever, it just says the Jews specifically, then I'm actually going to end up creating a false religion in the world, and most people who follow it are going to be deceived. Oh, but it's not God's fault, and God is not responsible at all for that. It's those idiots who were born and raised in Christian households who believed it from their birth, who really didn't have a choice. They're somehow supposed to know and believe through all of this confusion that this is not the author of confusion, that this is the true God. I mean, it's hard for me to take this seriously. All right, I'm going up. I'm going up to the super chats, and then I'm opening the room up. In fact, I'm gonna go ahead and send the link while I go to get these super chats for everybody. And I'm only gonna bring like one person on at a time, and I'm gonna limit the time so that we don't get stuck forever in a chat here. All right, making sure I didn't miss anybody here. Gotta scroll up. Gotta scroll up. Okay, I am gonna pin that comment. Waiting for this to update. Feel free to continue showing support if you want to super chat your questions or comment or whatever. I seriously appreciate all of that. It goes to a good place, and you go to a good place when you die. MythVision heaven. You get to make your own heaven. Like you know how video games you can create your own worlds and stuff? Yeah. That's what happens when you help out here at MythVision. Okay. Abel Chavez, again, the holy books are trying to say we humans can inherit reincarnation if we get right. Think critically, but in grand scale of the cosmos, put the code puzzle together. The shroud is the proof. I've done an episode on the shroud, Abel. I would highly recommend you checking it out with the historian. Let me get this here. The Shroud of Turin, MythVision. You can go and search it, but I'm finding it for you. And I ask Andrea Nicolotti, who's an Italian scholar who lives, and actually his office is 100 feet from where the Shroud of Turin is located. And he's examined the historical data here. And I know that you can go and find what he calls syndenologists that will try to argue that the shroud is really the authentic burial cloth from the 1st century. But historically speaking, there were many shrouds, many. And they even have historical documentation for the Shroud of Turin of its inauthenticity, that people were saying that it was made up, it's a fake, even back in the 13th century. So I just posted that in the chat. You may want to check that out and see what you think about that particular historian and what he has to say. So I'm very, very cautious of any claims like that. Thank you so much, though, Abel, for that. Princess Consuela Banana Hammock, thank you for the super chat. What do you think about the theories Jesus wasn't crucified and went to India, Japan, Britain, or I heard one about having a twin, I think. Love you. Thank you, Princess, so much for the support and the question. I would say, as I've read other scholars on this, they're all later. They're all later accounts. It's almost like where Joseph Smith, for example, in the 1830s is telling Native Americans, because they have a darker skin and they're from Indian tribes. Long ago, the Israelites actually had made wooden submarines and traveled from, the Middle East all the way to the Americas, and they got here thousands of years ago, and you are descendants of Israelites. It's almost like with Jesus, everybody wants the Son of God. They want this God figure to be their, how do I put it? Their patron. He came to our city, in our land. He saw it sacred here. He came and he consecrated this place or something. There's always something involved there. And I think it's later. It's interesting that humans would develop these stories, but I would say all of them, from India, Japan, Britain. There are even church fathers that supposedly were martyred in these regions. I think with the spread of Christianity, the more it spread, the more these stories kind of connected Jesus to these locations or saints to particular locations. And I would just say it's mythology and legend, but it makes them feel connected to the holy place or connected to God because that's their belief. Thank you for the super chat and the love. I really appreciate that. We got another one here. Mythic Life. I think I saw that one. The Mythic Life. And thank you so much. I appreciate the super chat. Whether it's mythicism, docetism, Islam, etc., it's interesting that there seems to be a theme of deception connected with the crucifixion in early Christianity. I don't go to church, so here's my MythVision tithe. I really appreciate it. Seriously. Yeah, I think that it is interesting that people would make this claim. Why would the early Christians, without getting into like the Quran or understanding why Muslims would do this, why would Christians or forms of Jesus followers not want him to be crucified? And here's my 2 cents. I could be mistaken. Someone in the chat probably knows a lot more about Gnostic material and the doctrines of docetics, etc. But I think it comes down to this issue of Jesus being God. Okay, I think the development of this debate happened centuries later. I mean, we're talking about Syriac Christians and various Christians in Constantinople, etc., all the way into the 7th century, the time the Quran is developed. They're debating over whether or not God died on the cross, not just Jesus. Jesus is God, therefore when Jesus died, therefore God died. Oh, no. That's, what do they call that? Deicide, where God himself died. So I think out the gate in the 2nd century, we already have these Christian groups, and some of them think, okay, Jesus is completely God. Maybe they have their philosophy, Middle Platonism or Stoicism or something else is impacting them, and they can't have God, the perfect Platonic deity, put on this filthy flesh that we have. We're at the bottom of the totem pole in Middle Platonism. We're at the lowest ranks in terms of the 7 levels of heaven. And in my opinion, I think this is why you wouldn't want Jesus being crucified, because it's not really him. It's a phantom. It's like a ghost of him. It's a reflection of his true him. And it's really, everyone thought it was him, but it's not really him. And I think that is because they're trying to wrestle with, who is Christ? Is Christ just a man? And we can go to the Ebionites and find him as just a man, like a John the Baptist type figure. He's just a man. He's just a prophet, just like we see in the Quran, kind of. That, like, this is what he's seen as. Doesn't mean he may have not performed miracles. Other prophets performed miracles. Moses performed miracles, etc. But he was just a man. And others were like, get out of town. He was worshipped. He was God. He was this and that. So that's where I think it stems from. And then the debate just unraveled for centuries from there. That's my opinion. Thank you so much for being one of my supporters on the Patreon. I love you. And thank you for doing that. Okay, did I miss anyone? And then we're going to take a caller here. Abel Chavez, I decipher, I uncover the grand code. I can feel it. I know it. It's about reincarnation. And if I'm right, it's beginning to happen. And they knew. Thank you so much for this. Abel, you're excited today. You are really excited about this. I don't know what you're talking about most of the time, but nonetheless, I appreciate the support. Seriously. Paul, the logic is sound, Derek, but it means that believers of Islam have to admit that the religion is clearly man-made, which is difficult for them. I would say it is difficult for anybody who, holds sacred to something. Christians do it, Jews do it, you name it. I mean, and I don't blame people for that. I'm not one of those atheists who go, you idiot, you're such a dummy. I can't believe, I want to try and give them food for thought, because if I spoke to me 12 years ago and I was rude and an asshole and I was not respectful and kind, I wouldn't have listened to me. First of all, I wouldn't even have a conversation with me. But number two, I can't imagine I would have gone from 0 to 100 of skepticism like that. It took time and trying to consider evidence and think hard and be critical. I was not comfortable being critical of my own traditions. I had to be gentle with my own thinking. So, Paul, thank you so much for that super chat. Really appreciate that. Doug says, Allah accidentally revealed his name was Yahweh in Surah Maryam 19:7 on Zechariah. Indeed, we give you good tidings of a boy whose name will be Yahweh or Yahya. We have not assigned to any before this name. Interesting. I've never seen that. then again, when I read the Quran, I mean, you don't really study it. You're just reading it, and you go right past a lot of this, and a lot of it's a certain translation. So, Constellation Pegasus, have you done an episode on the Quran teaching Allah uses stars to pelt demons, eavesdropping on the exalted assembly? I have not, but I've heard it. I'd love to do a deep dive with someone who's an actual, someone who actually is aware of this. Good to see you in the chat, Constellation. All right, let's take our first caller. I'm going to limit our time, my friends, but I want to hear from you. Welcome, Roku. How are you, my friend?
Hey, what's up, Derek? I'm fine. And you?
I'm good. I'm good. I hope you're doing okay on this Sunday. What did you want to talk about?
No, I just want to say thank you for all the videos that you make. Like, I study theology, and I still profit from all the interviews that you make.
Thank you, Roku. I really do appreciate that. I know I'm critical, but I'm trying to be a fair human who's kind and understanding that people are coming from certain areas. But I think when I first got into the whole critical Islamic thing, there was a tendency to be cynical, and I'm trying not to be that because I understand what it means to believe in things. But at the same time, I do want to take a historical approach, and I don't want to shy away from thinking what I think and telling people what I honestly think about stuff.
Yeah, I know. I think like in this part, like with Islam, it's just starting with all the scholarly stuff, like there's still a lot to do, and maybe in like 20 years we have so many new ideas. Who knows?
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot that, for example, right now, I'm really, you got to go where people are at, but Saudi Arabia is starting to do things that they were never doing before. They were even allowing concerts, I heard, and they've never allowed like musical concerts and things.
Yeah.
But also archaeological digs. It's very limited. And I think that from talking to Robert Hoyland, I don't know if you saw my last episode with Robert Hoyland, he was pointing out like they're comfortable with their tradition and they don't want to pop that bubble. So they're not concerned with looking up fossils and archaeological digs near the Kaaba and trying to find like what can we find out from the 7th century of what was really going on the ground. No, they already believe they know what really went on, and that is what the tradition says and what the Quran tells us and Hadith, etc. So I hope that more critical historical methodology comes so that we can say, here's what our texts say, and here are what on the ground archaeological facts say, and then try to figure out, anyway.
Yeah, of course. Like on all these holy sites, it's gonna be very difficult. Same with the wall in Jerusalem or where the mosque is.
Yeah.
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 Who
Good
knows if
luck,
something's
right?
going
Good
to happen?
luck.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's definitely. There's fights that happen there all the time, even to this day, about Dome of the Rock with Jews and Muslims that are fighting over that. So, yeah, I would love to see more peace, and I feel like if we all started understanding these are human constructs, that I'm not tribalism, right? I'm right, my beliefs are right, you're dead wrong, and you're going to go to hell for it, or you're so wrong, my father's this that. I feel like compassion has more of a chance and peace has more of a chance if we understood that. But that's wishful thinking.
Yeah. Well, you have. Yeah. It just sadly it's like that. Like not many people are willing to think critically.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, that's just how it is. Sadly, yeah. The thing is, it's also very hard to like make sense of everything. Like we have a bunch of theories, and like I got to a point where I'm like, here we have these theories, but I don't have an argument to say, hey, this one is the best one, or otherwise. Like I've become like really a skeptic, and it's kind of hard. It's kind of hard for me.
Yeah, and I mean, sometimes we could be too skeptical, and I'm going to end on this note, and then I'm going to have the next caller.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think skeptics can be too skeptical because let's say we don't like a religion or something. Let's say I was hurt by Christianity, therefore I'm going to go out of my way to just try and demolish it. And I think over the years I've started to kind of be cautious about how skeptical I am about some things and listen to other academics as well. because I used to think everything is completely made up mythology. There is nothing of history in the New Testament. It's pretty much all bogus. And now I'm beginning to go, okay, hold up. There might be, just to use that as an analogy, there might be some historical nuggets here. There might be something that goes back to a source. And you don't need to be so skeptical that it's all, you can't even trust any words, that anything to have any historical value to explain Christianity. And I think that we should do that as well. If we're looking into Islam, we need to understand there are academics that are good Western academics, like Sean Anthony, Marian Van Putten, Hytham Sidki, others, Robert Hoyland and such. And all of these Western academics are saying, well, while we're very skeptical of the traditions and obviously later traditions we find of Islam, there might be some traditions there that really do stem back to a historical oral tradition that was passed down. Even if it isn't completely accurate, there may be some kernels there. And I don't know how they would parse through it, but I'm interested in that kind of investigation myself.
Yeah, I think like in the Arabian culture, the oral transmission was still like a thing that they used.
Yep.
So I don't know, maybe most of what Muhammad or the others knew was via an oral oral knowledge. The thing is, I asked myself, okay, when was the Bible translated into Arabic? And I think it was a bit later. With I think a Jew in Gaon, Sadir Gaon, he translated the Torah. I think it was in the 9th or 10th century, and then the Christians, I think it was also around 9th, 10th century. So I don't know, kind of hard.
Yeah, I think I'm not sure the Christians did it then. It might have been a little after, but either way, they started to do something similar. I really appreciate you joining, Roku. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you too for having me.
Yeah, you have a wonderful day. Okay.
Thank you. Ciao.
Bye. That was a friendly, wonderful conversation. I hope to have more of those. Just saying hey to the chat here. All right, everybody. Hope you're being nice to each other as much as possible in the chat. All right, our next guest. Welcome to MythVision S.
Hi, Derek. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm fine, thanks.
What would you like to talk about?
Yeah, so okay, so I'm a Muslim.
Uh-huh.
I was interested in this video about Jesus because I think we spoke about this subject before. So to answer your question, so what is the title of your video? Does the Quran says that Jesus was not crucified? Yes, of course. The Quran says Jesus was not crucified.
Right.
He was not touched. He was not hurt by the individuals who were trying to hurt him or kill him, and he was saved by God. And the Quran emphasis on this point because it is the core belief of Christianity, invented by Paul. So it hacks at the root. It strikes the root of the belief.
I agree.
It does not go. It does not go around the marginal beliefs and the branches of beliefs. You see, it goes straight to the root. What is the root of Christianity? Is that Jesus was killed, crucified on a cross, and then resurrected, and then risen to his Lord. And Islam, the Quran says no, that didn't happen. It was not touched. And the Arabic word used in the verse is shubbiha. Shubbiha can mean several things. That's why you have several translations. Shubbiha is a passive form of to look like, a passive. So it looked or he looked like. See. So right. And the debate is, what is the subject of this passive? Who is the subject? Is it Jesus, the subject, or is it the context of the scene that looked like he was crucified? And the scholars, of course, they disagree about how it happened, but it is not important how it happened. The core message is no, Jesus was not crucified. Who was crucified in his place? Was it this son of Cyrene or somebody else? Or we don't know, and we shall never know, or shall I say, until the judgment date, we will know.
If I may,
But-
just to
Yes.
just to ask a question and at least to get a response, and then I do have more callers. I do want to say thank you for calling in too, by the way. If God did take Jesus and it appeared that Jesus was crucified, like some people thought, haha, we got him, we got him, we nailed this guy to the cross or to a tree, however you want to, whatever you want to say, but they didn't really do it, and the Quran says that he was taken. Can you see why I think, with that logic, let's just say I assume Allah exists and he's the only true God. If he did that, it caused a deception for people like Paul, and it made all of these Christians follow a lie that Jesus was really crucified and died and rose again. Do you see what I'm trying to get at?
Yes.
Would you agree
Yes,
that would mean that God was like, it's part of the plan that God made this look like Jesus was crucified, and this fake religion called Christianity was made because Allah did that?
Yes, definitively, because we know in Islam that there is no atom in the universe which is not under the control of God.
So you believe, okay, so you're an interesting one. Look, there's some honesty here. I want to say to the chat, give a praise to S for this, because there are a lot of my Muslim friends who kind of want to do philosophy, and they want to go, well, God, he's in control, but like he doesn't really do he's not really in control. So they want to like try to teeter totter on this whole issue. And it's like, listen, if God's in control, he's all knowing, all powerful. It's part of his plan. Everything happens. He wanted this thing, like it's ultimately his purpose. And I'm using a male pronoun to describe God, but obviously, God would be sexless in heaven. Anyway, do you agree that absolute control, God planned and wanted and did this exactly as he had ordained?
Let us be clear about the words. So what I mean in control is that he knows everything about all things. Okay, it does not mean that he moves things as he wishes. Okay, he can do it. He can move this atom here and there if he wishes, but he established laws, for instance, laws of gravity, etc. That the stars and planets move that way. He knows how the planet moves. Okay, according to his knowledge, everything is under his control, and if he wishes, he can change the courses of history or courses of movements of objects. Okay. Now, regarding Christianity, obviously God knew that a new religion was to stem from this event, the non-crucifixion of Jesus. This is a interesting issue because it is related to destiny and so on and so forth. I think that Christianity is the less of two evils, because Christianity brought many people to the Abrahamic circle of religions. Before that, all these people were Hellenistic pagans, worshipping Zeus and a couple or hundreds of other gods. You see, but with Christianity, even though I think Paul was a antichrist. This is my opinion. I think Paul was an antichrist. His message was to hijack the message of Jesus, which is monotheism.
Is that mainly like most Muslims' view of Paul, that he was an antichrist?
Most Muslims view that Paul was a liar, not the antichrist.
Right. Okay.
The antichrist is a very specific character. Okay, is a person in Islam. A person which is present throughout history, and for us and for me, I think he appears whenever a prophet appears. He's like an arch enemy of the prophet. And to Jesus, the arch enemy was Paul. But as a deceiver, he hijacked his religion, which is monotheism, to a pagan form of that monotheism. It was the best he could do, because as long as you worship more than one God, you are lost, according to monotheism. Okay, so for him, okay, I concede that all these people will enter a form of Abrahamic religion namely Christianity. They believe in one God, and Jesus as the second God, and the Holy Spirit as the third God.
Right.
And most of them will worship Mary, but at least now they are related to this view of the world, this paradigm, okay, with Moses and all the prophets before that. And this paved the way, I think, to the coming of Islam 600 years later.
Right.
Because before that, they were in a pagan form of religions and so on. They are quite far from monotheism, the monotheisms of Islam. But now, with the stepping stone of Christianity, even if it is a false religion, it has many gods and so on, but now they know God, they know Jesus, the son of Mary, they know Moses, Abraham, all these prophets would only were local to the Jews. Now they also belong to the Christian history. See what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
And
yeah.
It was the less of two evils. And I believe that's why Christianity, God allowed Christianity to spread in those regions, and history proves this view. Because
I got one more question, and then I do need to get. I've got two more people in the chat that are ready to jump on. I got to ask you, if you don't mind. I'm sorry I cut you off, but
Nice.
Are Christians going to Gehenna? Are they going to hell for believing Jesus is God, the Father is God, and the Holy Spirit is God? And they try to make, the argument that it's one God, but it's three different people. What are they going to hell for believing in that? Are they going to get a chance when they, once they die? Are they going to be like, oh, okay, hey, I realize there's only one of you? And
so this is not my answer. This is the answer from the Quran. In the Quran, you have several verses warning the Christians about not believing in Jesus as a son of God and another God. Many verses, like God himself asking Jesus, hey, oh Jesus, did you tell the people to worship you instead of me? And just say, oh no, God, you were witness. I did not say that. They choose to worship me instead of you, and so on. And the same for Mary, and also then other verses in the Quran which says those who say that Jesus, son of Mary, is God or the son of God are disbelievers. And if they don't stop, unfortunately for them, they will go to hell.
I just want to leave you on this one note. To me, as someone who doesn't believe, that looks like what God created by tricking those people in the first century with Jesus's crucifixion. That looks like a setup for a lot of them as well, to believe in a false religion that they end up possibly going to hell, it seems. There's over 2 billion Christians today, for example. And to me, I'm like, how can we not say that Allah didn't plan for them to believe in this false religion, which would inevitably cause them to go to hell? You see what I'm trying to get at?
Yeah. But also in the Quran, it says we do not punish anybody before we send a messenger. That's a very famous.
If the Christian doesn't change their mind after hearing the message of Islam, then they have a chance. What happens to them?
Yeah, so if this is a debate, a case studied by the scholars, for instance, somebody living in the jungle, which never received the message of Islam. So what happened to him when he dies? And scholars say that on the judgment day, since he did not receive the message, God will raise him from the dead, of course, with everybody, and then he will. Some scholars say that God will order him to go to hell, and if he obeys, God will send him to paradise, and if he disobeys, God will send him to hell. Why? Because he is in the judgment day. Okay, all the angels on the sky, billions of angels, God is himself present. So in that moment, if he does not obey God, this means that if he were alive on earth, he would do the same or worse. You see what I mean? So on that moment, if he disobeys God, it means that he would be he was a disbeliever in his life. But if he obeys God, if God obeys him to go to hell, and he looks at God and says, yeah, I cannot disobey him. Okay, I go to hell here. God will make him enter paradise. So that's the key. God does not punish anybody before sending him the clear message of monotheism.
S,
And just
thank you for calling, by the way. I've got to get to 3 other callers. We got more callers in now. Seriously,
just one last thing.
Yeah.
30 seconds regarding all what you said about the precedence of some messages, like some docetic views of Christianity, Gnostic, and so on. You have the resemblance does not mean precedence or copying from those traditions, Derek, because it's not because you have a car and another car which has 4 wheels. It means that it's the same manufacturer of the car, you see. But Gnosticism is very, very different.
Oh,
from
I
Islam.
agree. I also know that Arabia is not far from Alexandria, Egypt, where Christians like that and their traditions were. But S, thank you so much for the call. I really appreciate you and your kindness. Call back someday whenever we have more of these.
You're not doing as many live streams with letting people calling in like before. That's why
I've been working on my house. I'm moving. Yeah. Once I get where I'm going, we're going to do this more often. Trust me.
Okay.
Thank you. You have a good day.
You're welcome. Thank you, sir. Ciao.
Bye. All right. Couple super chats. Got to show you some love. We're going to get to the next callers here. Rolef Oosting says, love your show. Been binging. Greetings from the Netherlands. May Woden's glory and Freya's grace shine over you and bring prosperity to you. Hallelujah. Thank you so much for that super chat. I really appreciate the support and the love in the chat, everybody. I hope you've been enjoying these calls so far. I'm learning. And just want to cover everybody's super chat because you guys throw me keeping the lights on. Constellation Pegasus, what year does Allah show up in writing? I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think Allah predates the Quran, the Arabic term for God. There are names that have the derivative of Allah in them prior to the Quran. Somebody correct me on that if I'm mistaken, but from what I understand, the academics have made this point. There's engravings and stuff with names on stone that have this, that predate, maybe not even just stone. Okay. Constellation Pegasus, why did Jesus never mention Allah? This is something that I would ask a Muslim to go into, but of course they would say it's the same God. It's just the term in Arabic for God, because El, it's kind of built into the name of El. There are others who think that Allah is a specific God that comes from some previous Arabic I guess you'd say deity, might have been a specific local deity. There are different ideas out there, even in the scholarly world. Not all scholars agree. Doug, Mark 10:32 was before Paul, was it not? Jesus prophesied his death and resurrection. Yeah, I'd be interested to know how the Gospels play into particular Muslims' thoughts, because they do put in the mouth of Jesus, whether Jesus thought this and said this or not, that it was part of his message that he would die and rise. Historically, I'm with Bart Ehrman on these, but I don't know. Anyway, I'd like to hear what Muslims say. And then Arabian Princess, thank you for the super chat. What does it profit a man if he gains the whole world and loses his soul? And someone actually wrote under a statement like that. You might laugh at this, but I think it was pretty clever. The whole world. They profit the whole world. That's what happens. Thank you so much for that super chat. All right, next caller is Critical Thinker 88. What is up? Welcome to MythVision.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
I can.
I wanted to talk about what you said earlier about leaving religion and how it's difficult and it takes time. If it's okay for you.
Feel free.
Because when I was between 14 and 16, I had an English teacher, an American. I preached to him Islam, and he just asked me one simple question: what is your proof? And then I went back home and asked for proof and dug around, but I did not find any of the proof satisfactory. But I could not express that to my family, because if you do that, you know how it is in Islam. Mm-hmm. You get shunned very quickly, so you have to be a little bit careful. But still, I believed in a God. I just did not believe in the specific God of Islam. I started to think, God has to be fair. You can't be born into a religion and then he judges you because of that. So if you are a good human being, you will go to paradise and such, you know.
Right,
the
right.
thought process. So
I guess I'm going either way then. I mean, based on everybody else's account, and of course, how I see the things I do, they say, Derek, you're good. You've got a good heart. You are a good human being, and according to that, you know, I mean, if you go back to ancient Egypt, right? They weighed the heart. You know, those kind of things. Anyway, I interrupted.
No, of course not. And later, when I was about 19, I had a girlfriend, and her mother, she was an atheist, and I asked her, "What do you believe in?" And she said, "Nothing. I'm just a humanist." And I found that very strange. How is it possible to be a humanist and not believe in a God?
Right.
So it was like, for a person that actually believes in a God, to not believe in a God, it's baffling for them, for many.
Yeah.
So as you said, it takes time, and you have to reflect, and you need to think about it for a long time before you manage to
I'll give you an example about this. This is a powerful point. There are Christians who believe the earth is very young. They're young earth creationists that think that Genesis teaches that around 7,000 years ago, God created the heavens and the earth. Creation started then, right? And some of these Christians believe that if you deny that, you're denying God, you're denying Jesus, you're denying the scriptures, and then you're going to go to hell. So if we can show them facts, this is what someone recently in a conversation had, if we can show them facts that the earth is much older, much older than 7,000 years old, what will they do with the evidence? And more often than not, they will ignore the evidence to believe what they already believe, not because evidence, but their fear of hell and the repercussions of not believing outweighs evidence to them, outweighs the truth of what is the reality. And
yes, of course.
So that's why I try to be patient, because I understand that people are coming from different beliefs with things, and it's like an onion with layer after layer after layer. And like, if I go after this one thing, there might be 10 layers of onion underneath that makes them not able to accept the point I'm making about this one at the top. And I can't peel all those onion layers. So they have to, over time, start to evaluate their own self and their beliefs, which I can't do for them, and I don't want to force them. I just hope that they will, on a journey of truth, start to discover it themselves.
You can't force them. It also depends on what conditions they were raised under. For example, if you take me for an example, I were raised in Northern Europe, so I'm from the Middle East, but raised in Northern Europe. So I had all around me. We studied all other religions, so you know what's out there and how you know a little bit more. But if you take my father, for example, he's a very open-minded person, but he could never, ever in a million years leave Islam. It would be impossible.
My mom.
It would be
Yep.
right. So it depends how because this indoctrination, it's very sometimes it's impossible to get past it if it's been going on for a long enough time, and if it's engraved in your culture. If you grew up in a extremely Christian society or extremely Muslim society, and your whole identity is in your religion,
that's
engraved,
right.
It's impossible then.
Well, critical. If you want to make one more comment, I'm going to get our next caller. We got 3 more callers.
Thank you.
You're good?
I talk. Yes, thank you.
Thank you
for
so
having
much.
me.
Yeah, I really appreciate you. Enjoy your Sunday, and let's do this again in the future.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
You too.
I'll watch further.
Thank you. Bye. Awesome. Wow. I'm feeling loved, and I'm feeling like we're having great conversations. I hope that you are as well, wherever you are on planet Earth, enjoying these conversations. Paul, you're next. I'm just going to read this super chat real quick here. Actually, this might be relevant to bring you up. Paul, welcome to MythVision. How are you? Your audio's not on, my friend. Let's see. work on that. Inquisitive Mind, the ghost of MythVision, says, if Mecca was the true holy city, then why didn't Jesus tell us so? There you are, Paul.
Am I on?
You are.
Excellent. And just say hi to Inquisitive Mind, the ghost, the spook of MythVision. As I've met him, he's a great fella.
Yeah, so how would you want to approach this question? And then I'll let you stay on here for like 5 minutes, if that's all right with you, Paul, to kind of address some of the things maybe said during this episode. You probably have more to add because we've done episodes in the past, and I have episodes that are on my Patreon that I still haven't made public yet. And we're going to go through a series of these discussing your ideas. So if we would.
Just to introduce myself to anybody who doesn't know, my big theory is what I call the Jerusalem thesis. In essence, what we need to know for this discussion is it's that the Masjid al-Haram or the Maqam Ibrahim or the House of God in the Quran is the Jerusalem temple. My argument is that when the Quran says, expel them from where they have expelled you, he's addressing people who've been expelled from Jerusalem in 614, and he's looking forward to a campaign that he actually launches and fights his way across Palestine and ends up besieging Jerusalem, but dies before the city falls. This obviously draws in lots of historical sources. The experts will know Sebeos and Thomas the Presbyter and so on, the common Syriac source. So that's my basic model for approaching the Quran. Dealing with Jesus, the thing that I find the most striking thing about Jesus is that he's simply not there for the vast majority of the Quran. He's mentioned in 15 surahs, but that leaves 99 surahs where he's not mentioned at all, even where they have lists of prophets, and they're all from the Old Testament. They have great long lists, and there's nobody from the New Testament at all. And that's the situation for the first, I'm not quite sure, 3/4 or more of the Quran. Jesus, Christians, completely absent. When Jesus does come into the Quran, he makes a spectacular entrance, like nobody else in the Quran. He's born of a virgin. The Quran tells us in that wonderful verse 4:171, it says, do not exaggerate. And then it goes on to say, Jesus is only a messenger of God. Okay, that sounds like not exaggerating. And he's also a word of God, and he is also a spirit from God. Well, that sounds pretty much like exaggerating, as far as most Islamic views of Jesus would go. So they're saying that Jesus is a word of God, which ties in with the Gospel of John, and it also says he's a spirit of God, which sounds somewhat like an incarnation. It then has Jesus speaking as a child, doing miracles as a child, healing the sick, raising the dead. It talks about Jesus being the Messiah, has Jesus die, and then also has Jesus being raised to heaven. So I would say that implies the death and resurrection, because what's the most obvious way where a person can both die and be raised from heaven? It would be that he dies first and then he's raised to heaven, which implies a resurrection, I would say. Then at the end, he's going to come back. He's going to be a portent of the hour, and he's going to be a witness against the people of the book. So in the real world, how can Jesus come from nowhere, from being completely ignored for 99 surahs, and then have all these incredible attributes? The first 3/4 of the Quran was being preached to Jews, or people from a broadly non-determinate but Judeo-Christian background, and Muhammad has to accommodate Christian beliefs when he starts his Palestine campaign. When he starts seizing territory that's got churches and monasteries and the Christian population, belatedly, he has to try and shoehorn Jesus into his model. He can't He can't just kill everybody. It's polytheists, which is what he seemed to, in the early service, to anticipate. And there's just too many, and it doesn't serve his purpose. He's got to find a role for Jesus. Now, I could go on about that, but just because time is tight, just zone in on the death of Jesus. The Surah 4, verse 157, starts off, as for their saying. It's an attack on the Jews, or criticism of the Jews, for making false claims about Jesus. In particular, for claiming that they've killed him. Well, that's basically it, for saying that they've killed him. Did the Jews make such a claim? Yes. The answer is they did make that claim. It's here. I have it. I don't know if this is going to come out in mirror writing, but it's a book, Jesus in the Talmud. It summarizes all the main sources, and it has a passage from the Babylonian Talmud in which it claims that Jesus was stoned, or it implies that Jesus was stoned to death for blasphemy, and that his body was then hung up on public display, which is exactly what the Mosaic law requires in Deuteronomy chapter 21, verse 21, 22. So when the Quran says and for saying that they killed the Messiah, but they did not kill him and they did not hang him up, all that verse is saying is refuting that particular verse of the Talmud, because at that stage the Quran is absorbing Christian dogmas like Bilio, because the Quran is an author is desperately trying to cram in as much Christian theology as he can possibly square with what he said before, as he's conquering Palestine.
There's a mouthful. I definitely want to do it. I'm going to need to do a live with you at some time, Paul, where we can have you giving some ideas. We'll give her like a presentation, and then allow Muslims to call in and kind of challenge what you're saying, or others who are interested in being challenging to come in and have the conversation, kind of debate discussion with you. How's that sound?
Mm-hmm. Oh, that sounds great. Yeah, I'm on my summer holidays at the moment, so I'm okay until the end of August.
I might find some time before then to have you come on, maybe in the next week or two, where we could do something like that, because I am moving, but I'm also working on my house, all of that kind of stuff. But Paul, thank you for coming on, man.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. All right, bye. Everybody, Paul's been doing this for a minute, and yeah, if you disagree with his Jerusalem thesis, I'd love to see the conversation be had. He has an academia. Paul Ellis, go check it out. Go read it for yourself. We've already done 4 episodes. 2 of those episodes are on the Patreon still. 2 of them are public. I believe we did 2 already public. I know we did 1 for sure public, but I think 2 of them are already public. Thank you, the Ghost of MythVision, for that super chat. Aaron Johnson, can you interview Lloyd De Jong on Sharia? I actually wrote that down in my notes, Aaron, so I'm going to look this scholar up and see what they have to offer, and I would love to interview an academic on that particular topic. Appreciate the love and the support. I'm scrolling down, ladies and gentlemen, trying to catch up to the next super chat, and then we're going to bring our next caller on. Robert Herring, just my tithe. Woman has me doing yard work. Thanks. Well, don't overheat. That's all I can say. It's hot right now, so be careful, Robert. Constellation Pegasus, what? The Babylonian Talmud says Jesus was stoned? Yes, it does. Something worth looking into, just to see how the Jews, respond to these particulars. And there are scholars who actually do think it's possible that Jesus was possibly stoned out the gate, because that would have been the punishment Jews would have given to somebody who's blaspheming or whatever. But of course, the Romans seem to be in the New Testament, the people who actually crucify Jesus. But yeah, okay. Really appreciate that, Constellation Pegasus. Rashid, welcome to MythVision.
Hey, Derek.
Hey, how are you?
I'm fine. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Thank you. What do you want to talk about?
Yes, just pretty much the same topic. I'm a Muslim. Okay. For those who are watching, I I actually found what Paul was talking about very interesting. I have heard of his Jerusalem thesis. I've read a little bit about it, so I'm quite familiar. But it's very exciting, very interesting what his theories are on that issue.
Right.
I say that there are, when it comes to this issue of Jesus, there is a certain view of Jesus within the Quran that is not appropriated any other person, not even Muhammad. The thing is that the way Jesus is portrayed within the Quran, it portrays him with certain terms, titles that are of no significant value towards Muslims. As you notice, for example, as also Paul says, he's referred to as, for example, the Messiah, the Messiah, that really has no significance as far as Islamic theology is concerned. It only has significance with Christianity in that he is called the Christ, so he's supposed to be like a savior of some sort who cleanses the sins and all that. So it is more significant to them, but to the Muslims, it really isn't that significant as far as theology is concerned. And the same thing with him being called a spirit from Allah or spirit from God, that is also something that is really, you don't see God like saying that about other people or other prophets. Like it's called وَأَيَّدْنَاهُ بِرُوحِ الْقُدُسِ, which means we aided him or we supported him with the Holy Spirit. And that is a statement that Allah doesn't use for anybody other than Jesus. Yet we all believe that the Holy Spirit, comes down and sends the scripture and is the one who bears the communication with the prophets. But yet with Jesus, it specifically mentions the Holy Spirit with him. And the interesting part about that is that all these things that the Quran seems to mention in order, I think it is trying to like build bridges with Christianity.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the point, that it's, so that's why
it's reacting to certain versions, but I think it is trying to build. It's like doing both. I did want to ask you about the theology question, if you don't mind, just
sure.
On Jesus returning. Is that in the Quran, the idea that, from what I understand, is he's not only a Messiah, but that a lot of Muslims I've spoke to say on the day of judgment, Jesus is like the second coming of Jesus plays a very important role in their theology about the time of judgment. Is that true?
According to traditional Islam, Jesus does play sort of like a major role. However, this idea that it is, all scholars believe this, there have been multiple scholars from the past who rejected this idea that Jesus was ever going to come back. Some of them said he died, that there is no second coming, because the second coming is not actually recorded within the Quran. It's not mentioned.
Right.
Some people might take certain verses to refer to a second coming, of course, but I don't think that it's talking about a second coming. However, in the Hadith literature, he is quite mentioned very, very vividly and very detailed as far as he's coming, what he's going to do, what he's going to be wearing, where he's going to come, how long he's going to stay on the earth, who he's going to kill, where he's going to kill the Antichrist, what's happening after. So all these multiple details are mentioned within the Hadith literature. So people consider that to be a part of the theology. Whereas for me personally, I don't think that is actually true or correct. So I think that when the Quran is speaking about Jesus, there's this sort of language that it uses with Jesus. That's why, for example, the story of the birds are mentioned, all these things. I think it was mentioning because this group that it was talking to were familiar with these stories. So it had to use those stories in order to build a relationship with them, not because those stories or those titles had any significance as far as the Quran is concerned. It doesn't really matter, for a Muslim, that Jesus is a spirit from God. You can clearly say that about anybody or about any prophet, that Allah says in the Quran that he breathed into Adam, a spirit, and all of us also, we have a ruh within us. But specifically with Jesus, it specifically mentions him because that is something that is so important within Christianity. So it has to mention it, it has to touch on it. However, when it comes to the crucifixion, I do agree with Paul, what he said, that the verse that is taken in order to refer to a crucifixion of Jesus, that is mainly, in my own opinion, that it's talking about this allegation that what the Jews said, that they have killed the Messiah, and that is what it's trying to refute. But it's not trying to refute that, for example, the Romans didn't kill him. It's just trying to refute that idea that the Jews said they had killed him, and it found that to be offensive somehow. And that's why it had to clear that up. And that's also why Mary is also put in the same category. Try to clear up her.
So just so I can pull this up here, all right, not all Muslims think the same. And I don't want to pigeonhole anyone. But this passage right here, I'm going to show you that this gentleman, I think it's a gentleman, who is answering. The Quran says they didn't kill him, nor did they crucify him, but God made it appear so to them. This is God using his miracle powers and performs miracles where Jesus is not crucified, but to the typical observer, it was made to appear so to them. And God is all knowing and powerful. So without my response, like I'm not worried about going into my response. My question is, it sounded like what you were saying is that the Quran isn't saying Jesus wasn't crucified. It's just saying that the Jews didn't crucify him. It doesn't say that the Romans didn't do it, but that the Jews didn't actually accomplish killing the Messiah. And I guess to be point blank so that I understand you, the question I have is, are you saying that Jesus was crucified?
I mean, I personally, because those are the different opinions that are out there.
Right.
And you can take on whichever opinion you think is more plausible. For me personally, I think that he was crucified. It seemed that the evidence is leaning towards that. I mean, there's too much historical documentation of it. And
I agree.
Also from the Quran itself, it's not entirely clear on the issue. Even, for example, when you consider certain verses, for example, which talk like when Allah says "Inni mutawafika," those people who speak Arabic out there who know exactly what I'm talking about. So that idea has been used, for example, where Allah says, "I am going to," and uses the term mutawafika, I'm going to cause you to die, or I'm going to, and this is the one that you brought up. They planned and that in the same verses, in the same verses, those ones. If you read maybe a little bit before, or maybe that one, for example, as you can see it right, the next one, and right
you
after
go down or up,
that one right there.
This was the plan one.
55. Yes,
I'll
right
zoom
there.
in a little too.
Exactly. So you see where it says that I am going to take you. You see,
I will deliver you.
Exactly. You know, that one where it says, I will take you. Oh, Jesus, I will take you.
Now, what if, all right, so say another Muslim comes on and goes, man, you're trying to get out of a tight squeeze by trying to go with these historians. The text just seems to imply that Jesus wasn't crucified.
No, I mean,
you get what I'm trying to say? They're going to try and say, hey, look, what's more plausible? It sounds like they're saying he was never crucified. But then Paul was just on, and he said, and I wanted to ask, but we don't have enough time for me to go through all the callers here. I wanted to ask Paul, because it sounded like Paul actually thought that Jesus was also killed in the Quran. It sounds like he thinks that.
I mean, I think that with the Quran, I mean, the glad verse I was showing you, I mean, in the Arabic, you can read it. Someone would say that mutawafika, it means literally, it means I will cause you to die. I mean, that's the literal understanding. But because there is this, you have a belief that he was never killed. So when you come to that verse, you must reinterpret it in line with that idea. But for me, for example, I have no problem, for example, seeing that as it saying "Inni mutawafika" to refer to I am going to cause you to die. So either that is by crucifixion, or it is I'm going to cause you to die a natural death, or any way. But I think that personally, I think that the historical document and all that, it leans more towards him being crucified. Now, I don't think that it really matters whether someone believes Jesus died or did not die. For me personally, like a Muslim, like if you don't believe that he's going to come back, what's the point? Like, if you don't believe that he's going to come back, because there have been scholars in the past who major scholars, and these are not just medieval scholars and scholars before, even scholars of the major schools of thought, and they also held the same view that he died, but maybe he was not crucified. He survived the crucifixion, but then died later.
So the swoon theory.
Exactly.
We're back to the swoon. Look, Rashid, you're awesome, man. I really enjoyed this conversation. I've got one more person to call to pick up, and then I just want to say your name didn't quite give your @ symbol, so tell the chat at chillin.
It's at chilling with scripture.
At chilling with scripture. Hey, get in the chat. In the comment section, drop it. So if anybody who's watching this, they want to connect with you, go ahead and message it up there.
I did write a few messages in the chat, but it's quite interesting. Thank you very much for having me on there.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate your kindness. Enjoy the rest of your day, my friend.
You too.
All right. Bye. Well, that was fun. Rashid brought a different perspective, and I knew somebody would. And there's always different views, right? There's different views out there. Interpretations, that's just how it is, right? This goes with the Bible, you name it. Let me give a special shout out to M. Doug. M. Doug said, if Paul is dismissed by Muslim scholars as bogus, it would be interesting to know if they felt it undermines the Injil as of God. That would be interesting. I'd like to know what the thoughts are on that in particular. I definitely would. I think in the chat, maybe we can get a response from some of the Muslims that are in the chat. Maybe I'd be interested to see in that. Doug, thank you for the super chat. Paul, I remember Rashid was on Apostate Aladdin's channel, and Apostate Aladdin is another ex-Muslim who we've had a few ex-Muslims already call in, I believe. But he has a YouTube channel where he is talking about Islam, and you can go subscribe there. Anyway, let me see. Where are we at here? Graham Pong, welcome to MythVision.
Thank you, Derek.
How are you?
Pretty good, Derek. How are you doing?
Doing good.
I want to thank you because I've been going through a really, really tough spot through my life, and you and MythVision and several other podcasters have it's been, kind of companions for me. And especially you with, your difficulties that you suffered through and survived, and you're now prospering. And I just want to thank you for that, because for both of those have been great for me.
Well, Graham, I really do appreciate that. And life isn't easy. We develop habits sometimes traumas cause us to develop habits to try and escape. And sometimes we still escape, even without the addiction stuff. I'll go on I do the podcast too. Like, I'll watch and listen to others too when I have downtime. But I really do appreciate that, because it's been one of my goals with this channel is to fill a chasm or fill that gap, especially for people who feel the need for spirituality or God or religion. I want to show that it isn't necessary to fill those gaps, to find meaning and purpose, and to actually be able to live a prosperous life, enjoy this life that we have. It isn't necessary. I think there are natural causes behind what give us those satisfactions, if that makes sense. But we attribute them to Allah or Jesus or, the God of the Bible or different God or whatever. And there's just different philosophies and whatnot that we're attributing it to, when I think it's really a natural phenomenon.
No, I agree 100%. You so much embody everything that you're talking about. It's great to see. And, one of the things that it's helped with is you basically offer a very inquisitive mind, where you're not prejudging with answers. You're open to all possibilities. And that's one of the things I appreciate with your shows and some of the others, is you have people on that I totally disagree with.
Right.
But I learn from them. I learn from everybody.
Right. That's the goal. I mean, obviously I'm biased. I say it up front. I'm very open and honest about my bias, but I also don't I try not to cut people off. I try not to my motivation in this kind of channel. I think most people who watch this know I love watching channels like Pine Creek Doug, who's critical and he likes to go on and epistemologically pick apart people's worldviews and stuff or make them question it and all. It's not my style. And one of the reasons that kind of confrontation is more debate-like, if you've noticed, I've had this channel for a few years now, and I've never done a debate. And people go, why don't you debate? You know a lot about Christianity. You know about the text and the scriptures and things like that. You've interviewed countless academics. You've sat at their feet. It's not about like arguing for like this or that case. Number one, I'm not certain any argument that I make is solid. I'm going with the best judgment I have based on the material, and it's not empirical a lot of times. It's interpretive. It's based on, our guesses of dating of certain manuscripts, things like that. Like I'm making guesses, educated ones based on scholarship, but then the ultimate real reason that I don't debate, just to give you an example, is ego. I mean, I come from an addiction background. And when I almost died from heroin addiction 7 years ago, October the 25th will be my 7-year anniversary. When I almost died, I realized I didn't know how to live my damn life. I really did not know what I was doing. I didn't know what this was. I just knew that I was going to die. That's all I knew. And I knew that the only way I was going to live, if I was going to live, was to have a philosophy that I don't know. Change that philosophy. Get comfortable with agnosticism. Get comfortable with starting from, I'm not going to be right. Let me start with, I'm not sure. And then go where the evidence leads me and be very cautious. Because every time I bought into a theology when I was a Christian, I became Reformed, Calvinist, because this text in Paul says this. And like I would go and attack other Christians in debate for years, my theology against them, and then boom, I relapsed. I'm back in addiction. Why am I back into this? I thought I had God's spirit. I thought I was one of God's children. How come I am in this position? And like that habit happened over and over. I'd get clean and be right with Jesus, and then back to this struggle. Why is this issue happening? So I had to finally start with, maybe I'm wrong about everything. And that philosophy I've carried with me even into today while I'm investigating. This is Derek Lambert's subjective thoughts based on the evidence. You might have a different one. And all of my viewers, I guarantee you there's something we could disagree about if we talk deep enough. I don't want cult followers. I joke around when I say I'll grant salvation for anybody who signs up as a patron and all that kind of stuff. It's all fun and games. But yeah, I appreciate you recognizing that. I just wanted to say that. I'm not interested in making people look stupid and silly, even if I think some ideas are bad and are backwards. Anyway.
No, I totally, you very much so. I was lucky enough that my father, from pretty much, again, from the time I was a toddler, he basically had me become comfortable with uncertainty. And the approach of what you said about, it's a little subtler, that, a little different than yours. He said that there are some things that you do know. There are some things that you absolutely don't know. And there are some things in the middle. Yeah. And you may not have a right answer for something, but you can always have a best answer. And as long as you're willing to examine that and correct it, you can always keep improving that best answer into a better best answer and keep going from there. And that, what you talked about when you went through the heroin addiction, having to learn basically how to live life all over again. That's very much totally what I'm doing, where it's like, again, the priest that I've been, talking to on spiritual stuff recently, it's one of those, we laugh about it because before he ever met me, he had 4 of his parishioners warn him about me. And the first thing I did when I met him, was I warned him about myself because of, the problems that I said, basically, I'm like a bull in a china shop right now. I just don't know how to get along with people, and it's basically learning how to walk all over again. And
you're 100% right.
Pulling this back to the whole Jesus thing, and was Jesus crucified? Part of what you've led me to is basically almost like, a more clarifying vision. And my answer to that question is both, because I'm ending up with, there's 2 different planes. You have basically a spiritual plane, and then you have this physical plane that we all live in. Mm-hmm. And again, a lot of this tends to correspond a little bit to, like more of a Hindu one. And it's sort of like you had multiple Jesuses, physical incarnations of that one higher spiritual Jesus. And it ends up, that's where you have things like the Flavian influence, and it's like I sort of see a lot of it. It's like Christianity, I kind of see as coming out of the whole cult of the emperor.
Well,
And
I think that, and this is where I'm at now. You've probably seen my ones where I was like thinking it's all pro-Roman and that like Christianity was created by Rome in the past. I thought that. And now I've moved out of that. Actually, I'm more of the opinion that the reason we see so much of Roman this, Roman that, first of all, they were ruling the region. They ruled the world at that time. But number two is I think that Christianity is actually trying to make Jesus the Lord, the King, instead of Caesar Augustus. So instead of it being Roman provenance, as if whoever wrote this was so pro-Roman that they really are like Flavian and this and that, I'm not convinced of that anymore. I'm convinced that Jesus is actually a rebel, not necessarily in the sense of here's a sword and let's go kill Romans or something, but an activist, a protester who's literally teaching that the kingdom of God, and he means, I think, the literal kingdom of God coming, to earth, where he's going to reign as a Messiah. God will sit on his throne. The Jews will rule the world. And these emperors who claim that they should be worshipped, even on their coins, the coin that Jesus hands says, render unto Caesar that which is Caesar. I think he's actually against Rome in reality. However, I also think that it's very likely when you see pro-Roman stuff, like they get Pontius Pilate to wash his hands and blame the Jews, there may be a butt kissing going on to Rome, especially since the religion is becoming Gentile orientated. I don't know. It's very complicated. It is, but I'm no longer thinking the way I did about it. I keep moving my thoughts, and who knows where I'll be at in a year from now. And but I just think that makes more sense now than it did before. I thought it was a conspiracy that Rome created to pacify rebellious Jews who wanted to fight against the empire. And I'm not there anymore. I'm gone to a different place.
I'm not sure it has to be an either or, though. Did you ever see the old, I think it was first season Saturday Night Live cartoon with Shimmer? With Chevy Chase. It was basically, Shimmer was a product that was both a dessert topping and a floor wax. And the idea that I try to come to is I try to find a common ground where try to make sense of both sides of arguments and stuff. Mm-hmm. And what you're saying, I 100% agree with, but that seems to be more like something that happened during the Constantine and basically the blender that was Nicaea. And it's like I'm seeing several different like iterations or waves of Christianity. And in a lot of ways, it's like Julius Caesar was sort of the first one. And then you have one under the Julio-Claudians, and then you have a reset under the Flavians. And then after the Flavians, you have kind of a different reset, and that keeps kind of re-happening. And that's what really led to the crisis of the 3rd century, is when it fell apart after Marcus Aurelius. And that's when Constantine came in with another reset.
I haven't really looked into that in particular too much, but I do think that the Caesar cult 100% played a major impact on the gospel material that we have, without a doubt. Mark, I mean, there are commentaries where Adela Collins, John J. Collins, he's like a legend. His wife wrote a commentary on Mark. Others are writing commentaries on the Gospel of Mark, our earliest gospel, and they're clearly saying that Paul, or this author, whoever we call the author Mark, is definitely giving off the vibes of the Caesar cult. That they're aware of the Caesar cult, and in some way Jesus is riffing off of that, which makes me wonder if this is toward a Gentile audience. So yeah, Graham, I really appreciate it. Did you want to make any final statements before I let you go?
Just thank you, and looking forward to where you go next in your life and your trip out, and best of luck.
And you too. I hope that you're doing okay. Don't give up. No matter what the struggle is, keep going. And like my dad always used to tell me, there's only one thing you need to really change, son. And I'd go, what is that? And he says, everything. everything. And I was like, damn. Yeah.
there's no giving up. There's only going forward.
That's it. Graham, thank you so much. And if you want to, feel free to reach out, try and contact me. If you have anything in private you wanted to talk about, I'm always there. I do have the Patreon. If anyone wants to support, it's $3 US dollars a month. And you can get a discount if you buy the whole year up front. It's less than a Starbucks coffee a month, less than half of a Starbucks coffee a month. You can also private message me there. In fact, there are people who struggle with addiction who go to my MythVision Patreon, and we have conversations all the time. There's private chat options and stuff. So I'm there for them. And yeah, if you want to do that, you're more than welcome to. But you can also email me, and I'll try to get to the email whenever I can.
Thank you, Derek. You're doing great.
Thank you so much for coming on.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye. Wow. Today has been quite an interesting day. I've had a blast. The amazing calls that have come in. I've learned something today. I've learned a new way to consider that particular passage I was looking at in Surah 4, I believe it was. You know, is this just trying to blame? I saw an interpretation, at least, it seems, from Rashim, that is it just trying to blame Jews that they didn't crucify Jesus, but the Romans did? For me, when I've read these multiple, and I don't know the original language. I'm only going off the English translations. I've read some of the tafsirs, and I'm looking and I'm going, it looks to me that they're trying to say Jesus survived and was taken. It seems to me that makes the best sense from the way I'm looking at it. Looks like it's trying to say they went to go crucify him and they didn't. He was taken by God. And I'm not necessarily saying that the impact was directly from this region. Let me pull the map up again. This region here, we call Egypt. Hold up. Here we go. Oh, that's planet Earth. Look at planet Earth spinning its. Okay, here we go. I'm not saying that it directly came from Egypt, but I wouldn't be shocked, especially when there are particular linguistic reasons in the Quran to say that they understood certain Syriac Christian traditions. And this is something that I had Marind and Putin on to talk about. And here you have, over here is Mecca. I think it's there. Is it up there more? Yeah, it's somewhere here in Mecca. Mecca's here, Egypt's here. And I'm thinking maybe the tradition's there. And like all tradition, there's a reinterpretation of details that they're using, kind of like with Jesus turning clay birds, right? We know about the story, or at least heard about the story, where Jesus turns these clay birds to living birds in the Quran. We know for a fact that that material existed centuries well before the Quran. And there are some Muslims that don't like that idea, like, no, I can't have it. And there are some that are more mature in their approach. In my opinion, I call it more mature, because they're like, yeah, so what? Traditions got passed down. Muhammad picked up some of these traditions and they found themselves in the Quran. To me, that's common sense. My philosophy is Scooby-Doo. I know it sounds goofy, but if you've ever watched Scooby-Doo, every episode, there's a demon or a monster or a ghost or some type of premonition, you name it. And it's always like haunting someone or trying to hurt someone. And then they go to look for this demon, monster, spirit, ghost. And at the end of those episodes, they're unmasking the demon, monster, ghost, whatever. And it's a human. It's always a human. And my philosophy is not saying it's always human necessarily, but I start looking for the thumbprint of a human. I am looking for what natural, without having to invoke a god, a demon, a monster, an angel, whatever, to try and explain the data that is in front of me. I want to look at the cause and effect in the natural world. Now, if you want to believe beyond that, go for it. I'm not here to stop you. But I don't see any reason to posit it. I start with the natural and I see all that is needed from that. And so that's what I'm looking for when I'm approaching Islamic history, Christian literature, Jewish literature, you name it. I'm all about that. The Ghost of MythVision asks, can you do a series on the Crusades as both sides blame each other for starting it? Yes, I'd love to do that. That would be interesting to see. Like, what do the historians actually say? How did it start? Were both sides at fault in some way? And yeah, I would love to do that. Maybe we can look them up, Mr. Ghost. I wonder if I pull your mask off if you're a human. The ghost of MythVision. I wonder if I pull your mask off if you're a human. You know who you are. Thank you for the super chat again, my friend. Abel Sheva says, Jesus and Judas are the same person, and the Shroud of Turin is his reincarnation and proof. Ironically, he will be only person to not come back, stuck in trial. Hold on. You need to email me what you're reading, where you're getting these ideas from, Abel, because I'm like, I don't understand what you're saying half the time. I'm not going to lie, my friend. I really don't. But you said he's stuck in the Shroud of Turin like a photo. Now, I've heard someone try to make the claim that they're called syndenologists that argue for the Shroud of Turin, that like Jesus' illuminating body left ultraviolet impression on the shroud, and that's where you get the still image of Jesus. But I have never heard anyone say he's stuck in the shroud or anything like. You got to email me, Abel. I get a crack out of your super chats. I'm not going to lie. Abel's back again. They chose a man with evil intentions towards Rome, good intentions for his group, Judeans. Jesus and Judas, same person. They proved reincarnation. And then he said, phone number to MythVision for future reference. Email me, Abel. I'll put my email in the chat. Podcast.com. Please feel free to email me any information you would like. There is my email. I really appreciate it. Some of these ideas sound a bit wild. I'm not going to lie. I want to say thank you to everybody, first of all, for the support, for all the likes, the conversations with both non-believers, agnostics, spiritual people, Christians, Muslims, you name it. Everybody who joined in conversation today, ex-Muslims, whatever you want to call yourself, I don't care. I want to say thank you for being a kind human today. I had great conversations with everybody. I want to do more of these in the future and understand how people understand things, why they understand them that way, and let each other explain ourselves and where we're coming from, instead of it being, excuse the term, I was raised to use terms like this, but I'm just going to use it anyway, a dick measuring contest. I don't really care to be like, I'm right, you're wrong. Like, I'm more interested in actual dialogue, because I think we can chew on it better than egos getting in the way. My team's right. I came into this right. I'm going to leave right. And I want everyone to bend the knee to my rightness. No, we should all be on a journey and trying to find out what happened and what makes the most sense. Which explanations make the most sense? That's my opinion. I hope your opinion's the same. That doesn't mean I'm not biased. You're biased too. We're all biased. So anyway, I love you. I really appreciate everybody in the chat. I hope you have a great day. I might try to tune in sometime later this week with Paul. Paul came in and we can maybe do a live chat, talk about his theory, and then have others come in and criticize and pick apart and try to like see if they think there's something wrong about it or whatever. But I'll get in contact with him after this. Thank you so much. And never, ever, ever forget, we are MythVision.